Hello, good afternoon, good Sunday afternoon, everybody. Okay. Oh, look at that. Look at my number one fan here. So, let's see here. Where are we at? We're Sunday. Yesterday I was a little busy and I was working on trying to catch up on page 42, which I'm still working on. I'm hopeful I can finish page 42 tonight or at the absolute latest with a little bit of work tomorrow, which, to recap, is behind my preferred timing of starting a new page every Saturday morning. But remember the previous page, page 41, I didn't finish until Tuesday night. Oh, like just because this has been a slog through here. Okay. Which we've been talking about for weeks now. I'm in a section of the comic that is tough to draw. And it's wearing me down. It's wearing me down so much. So before I move on from there, if I finish page 42 tonight or even tomorrow, I'm still reclaiming ground. So I'm fine with any of that. As long as I finish sometime tomorrow at latest, I'll take it. That's fine. It's all in the effort of slowly getting back on track. And that is trending in the correct direction. But page 41 was such a slog that by the time I finished it, I'm speaking hyperbolically, not literally. I had a little bit of like a breakdown. Like I was so creatively exhausted that I kind of needed a couple days away from this just to get my head straight on doing the work again. So I switched to another creative project that I had been it's something that was only going to take a couple days. It was on the side. And it was like, you know what? This is a great opportunity to set DvsM aside for 1 or 2 days, work on this other project and crank it out. And then by the time I get done with that, I think I'll feel refreshed and I can go back to DvsM, which is exactly what I did. Paul, how's it going, man? It's all Squatch. It's all Squatch's fault. I agree. Not my fault. Squatch's fault. No, it wasn't Squatch's fault. It was just, I don't know. I think anybody, not only any creative, but anybody who's put themselves a lot into anything, I think could sort of relate. I just reached a point. It was three. I'll explain where my head was at. It was 3 feelings all at once, and none of them were conducive to being productive and doing good work. Here were the 3 things. One thing was I was how do I explain this? There was one panel in particular that I was working on that I was trying to get to look right. Okay. And I was feeling, my self-imposed time limit of page a week. And I was spending an inordinate amount of time on this one panel. It was bogging me down. And I was not happy with how it was. It wasn't looking the way I wanted it to. It wasn't. And a lot of times things don't look the way you pictured in your head, but usually, most of the time, it's an acceptable alternative. You might have a picture in your head, you draw it. It's not exactly what you pictured, but that also is acceptable. And I think that's an important place to be productive. You need to, if you want to actually get work out, you need to let go of this idea that you need to recreate the pictures in your head. If you're stuck on that, I think you're never going to, in my opinion, you're never going to finish anything. You have to accept, like, I'm just going to, whatever comes out, I'm going to make that work. So anyway, that wasn't happening, but what was coming out, I didn't like that. I felt like this isn't right. This isn't right. And part of it was all the things that a creative normally struggles against, the limits of your own ability. Like, no matter who you are, you're only so good, you know? And like, you might have a picture in your head that you're not actually capable of achieving. Okay, so that was one. The limitations of time, which I was feeling especially, this thing of like page a week. And it occurred to me, and I'm curious if any of the other artists who are watching this or watching it on the replay, like, you know, let me know if you've ever had this experience. Normally, I just accept like page a week, and then you do whatever you can do in the time allowed. And I don't even really have a week. I have a day job and I have a life around it. So it's like, of the time you allow yourself to draw, you make the page, I make the page as good as I can within that limitation, which can only be so good. No panel in DvsM is going to be the best drawing I'm capable of. No, none of DvsM is the maximum expression of my talent and ability and skill. Like, it can't be, because I'm constraining like as good as it can be in a time limit. And I've always just, that's what you're doing. It's a comic book. Like, the panels aren't supposed to be each one of these. You could like pull them out and frame them and put them in a gallery. That's not, like, you're trying to do a different thing with a comic book. You're trying to do it well. You're not trying to do like, you know, horse shit, but you're trying, like, it's not about like, this is the most amazing rendering ever seen. You know, like, that's not, it's a different ballgame. And that's, you know, that going in. But for some reason, when I was struggling with the page last week, I had this moment of picturing what this panel that I was struggling with could be if I had unlimited time. If I decided, rather than a page a week, what if I spent a week on just this panel? What if I spent a month on this panel? What would it look like? And I had that picture in my head of what it could look like if I wanted to make this an art piece. Like, if I just wanted to spend all my time and not worry about deadlines, just doing this one panel. And I had the very clear picture in my head of what that would look like. And the fact that I knew it wasn't going to look like that, for some reason, normally it'd be like, of course it won't. But for some reason in that moment, really bummed me out. Like, really brought me down. I was stuck on this idea of like, I'm putting out work that with the time limit I've put on myself is, you know, 30% of my drawing ability. And I hated that feeling. Like, okay, so that was one thing that for some reason came in. I had this vision of what I could do if I didn't worry about time. If I spent, like Barry Windsor Smith on Monsters, if I spent 30 years doing this book, what would it look like? And I knew I could see the difference between what I'm putting out and what it would be if I just didn't worry about time and just took all the time in the world with it. I saw the gulf between those and it bummed me out. That was one thing that kind of like messed with my head. The other thing was, and this is, I have no idea where this came from. I was suddenly overwhelmed with this obligation for this work, DvsM 1979. And this is going to sound ridiculous because it is ridiculous, you know, but in the moment, it's like, this needs to be a worthy piece of art to be added to the pantheon of art. This is what happens, I think, if you overwork, like, and you really are taking your work seriously and you're passionate about it and you care about the output, like, your head can go to that place where I was just like, there's this universe of artistic expression out there. Some, and like, you know, from the Sistine Chapel to Mouse to All Quiet on the Western Front to, like, you know, all this stuff out there. And this thing I'm making is going to go in that club. So it needs to deliver, which is another like crazy thing to be talking to yourself about when you're just trying to draw a fucking alien comic. Okay. So then that came in. And then finally this, and this is a good thing, this feeling that, and this kind of circles back to the first, just being kind of dissatisfied with what I was looking at. Now, the conventional wisdom, if you're any kind of creative, you've heard this before, whether you draw or do music or write or whatever the thing is, that if you look at your stuff and you're like just suddenly, just seemingly overnight, just like frustrated and unhappy with it, or you like something I joke about with a friend of mine a lot who's also a visual artist, like we'll mention it to each other. It's like, I woke up today and I don't remember how to draw. I just don't know how to do it anymore. I thought I did, and now suddenly I've forgotten. Usually, the conventional wisdom is sensations like that indicate you've crossed a kind of a threshold. You've leveled up. Okay, you've something has broken in your head, where now you've attained a new level, and therefore, when you're looking at your all the work you've done up until now, it doesn't look right to you because you've turned a corner. So in a way, it like optimistically and encouragingly, you can read that as that's a good thing. That's a good thing sometimes to look at your work and say like, that's not right, because it means you've grown a little bit. But when you're in the midst of drawing a book and you feel like, oh, I think I would have done every single thing before now differently if I had to do it again. That's not a great feeling when you're in the moment, when you're running the race and you realize, when you're like I am, 3/4 of the way through the marathon, and you realize my form was all wrong for the first 75%. Like, that's a fucking bad time to think of it. You know, like, I mean, it's good, I guess, you know, but at the same time, it's like, I would have rather have had that aha moment when I was done, you know, not in the midstream when I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, like, so all three of those, this feeling of like, I need to do art worthy of art with a capital A, that, I'm realizing, like, if I had unlimited time, if I didn't have a day job, if I was independently wealthy and I didn't care about getting it out like on a semi-regular basis, like every couple years or so, like it could look amazing. I'm realizing like, oh, you know, I'm getting better, and as a result, like, I'm less satisfied with work I've done before now. All those seem to happen in the space of like 24 or 48 hours and kind of simultaneously. So by the time I finished the previous page, I was like, I need to step away. Like, this is not a good productive headspace. You know, this is just a headspace where you're going to just be drawing things and hating everything you're doing and getting frustrated. And that's not good for anybody. It's not good for me. It's not good for the book. It's not good for the eventual audience reading the book. I need to step back. Not, you know, for like, oh, I'm taking 3 months off, but like a couple days. I just need to collect myself. So, like I said, I step back. I worked on this other project that had been sitting that I knew I could grind out in like 2 days. And by the time I finished it, I circled back to the comic yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Or no, the day before. And that was all I needed. Like, I felt refreshed. It was almost like a little weekend vacation or something, you know, where it's just like, okay. And I actually, on the good news of this, circled back to the page I was supposed to be starting, like that I'd kind of laid out, but then I set aside, and then the previous one that had kind of broken me a little bit. And looked at them, I was like, no, these are fine. These are like, I'm not like, but I was in this kind of dark, kind of frustrated place where I was just like, I don't like how this looks. I don't like how this looks. It's not looking right. I don't like it's not coming together the way I wanted. And that's something I've learned lots of times through this, all the way back to DvsM 75, 97, now this one. It periodically bubbles up. You'll feel like this doesn't look, I don't like how this looks. But if you can afford to step away from it for a day or so and just kind of let yourself like chill, just chill. Now go back and look at it with some fresher eyes. 9 times out of 10, I would say 8 times, one of 2 things will happen in my experience. Luck, knock on wood. 8 out of 10 times you'll realize it's fine. You were just in a weird mood. It looks great. It's fine. The remaining 2 out of 10 times, you might still realize like, yeah, that's not right. But because you took a step back, you see why. You see the thing, like if I do this, it'll work. And so that was the thing. Louis is very chatty today, I think, because it's cloudy and rainy, and this is normally his sit in the sunbeam time, so he's unhappy about life. Anyway, that's where I've been, but now I'm back in it and I'm feeling good, and I'm liking how things are looking, and like I said, I'm hoping to finish page 42 tonight, or worst case tomorrow, which is fine. And then to recap, so remember, December is my lousy drawing month. I think this is the last page of the lousy drawing. This is the peak. Like if I can get through page 42, it all starts to like get easier. Okay. So I'm feeling good about that too. I'm relieved. And that's part of, I think, what caused this whole like weird existential artist crisis it's just frustrating page after frustrating page after technically challenging page after visually difficult page for weeks. And then finally it was like, oh, I can't fight this fight again, so I just needed a little bit of a break. Now it's kind of clearing up. And once I get, and I've said this a few times, once I get into January, it's way more manageable drawing. This is just this very difficult section that is weird and kind of out of my comfort zone. And it's probably, speaking now optimistically, it's probably why I felt like I leveled up a little bit, and that I've been doing like a couple months of drawing that's making me stretch. And I think that broke something where I was like, oh, and like, I think on the bright side, I think some of the work I've been doing in the past few weeks is the best work anybody's going to have seen in a DvsM. Like, I think it'll be the most visually interesting, the most visually ambitious. The flip side, the con of that is like, it's not fun. It's not fun to do it, on the hamster wheel. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat now. Yeah. Yeah, and I have to admit, I don't know. It's all relative. I think I'm pretty good at maintaining the work-life balance thing. I'm sure there's people who would maybe disagree, because everyone has their own subjective idea of what that looks like. I think I'm generally pretty good at it. But I also know I ride really close to the line. Like I have a sense in my head of where the healthy balance is. Right here. This little knife edge, and I try to walk on the knife edge. I don't say like, well, just to be safe, I'll stay 5 feet of the knife edge, like inside of it. No. It's like, okay, this is the safe zone. Then I'll try and push it right on that limit where I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to have like crack up. I'm not going to, be eating shit and not sleeping and, like testing myself physically for this. But I'm going to use whatever available space I think I have to push. So. Yeah, I was curious. I mean, I feel like these are probably, I would hate to think that for some reason I'm the only one who occasionally has that thought, but it's some of those are infrequent. Like, I don't think I've ever felt overwhelmed by the notion of I am putting a thing out and I care about art enough that I want to make sure it's a worthy thing. I can't say, maybe I've thought that, like in a light way, but I've never felt it. I've never felt the burden of it before a couple days ago. And I don't know what it was. And not just like this kind of weird abstract idea of like I'm contributing to the body of art and I want it to be a worthy addition, but even on the more practical level, like I want this to be worthy of people's attention. If someone's going to take time and read this, I don't want to take that for granted, like that this, I want to be worthy of their attention. I want to be worthy of their investment. I want to be worthy, I want this to be worthwhile, not just for the time I'm putting into it, but for the time that someone else is going to put into it. Someone's going to spend, 12 or 15 bucks on it. Someone hopefully is going to sit and read it. And hopefully, that cat, Louie. Oh my God. Someone's going to read it and maybe, hopefully, read it again, and hopefully want to read the other ones, and hopefully try to see all the little through lines and everything. And it's like, I want it to be worthy of that kind of investment and attention. Yeah, that's something. And I'm not someone who feels like, oh, I'm going to go back and remaster any of my books or anything. So I just live with this was the work I did at that time. But it's sometimes, again, frustrating midstream. Most of my project. Yeah, I find, and the project I took a break with is different enough from the comic where even though it was still working, it was enough where it didn't feel like it was a nice palate cleanse. Let's see here. Yes. Yeah. Actually, this is it's just Squatch. I made all of the rest up. It's Squatch. Why do you have a page a week deadline? I'm going to answer your question as after I see a guest in the green room, but I will be happy to answer this question and talk about it. Look at that. Look at that handsome man right there. Wow. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that mug.
This mug or this mug?
Look at those mugs.
Yes.
How are you doing, man?
Good. Louis, what's going on, Louis?
Louis losing his mind. He's frustrated. Okay, so to answer Paul's question. Why do you have a page a week deadline? So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm on my phone because my computer battery is completely dead. It's at 0, and I can't even log on. So I'm charging the computer right now. So I can't read any of the comments or anything like that. So if you have comments, you might have to read them because I can't.
Okay. Paul's question is, here's a question for you. Why do you have a page a week deadline? Have you thought about how it would go without that constraint?
Maybe Mr. Paul should mind his own business.
Why are you asking so many questions? Yeah.
Yes, no. Be a shame if something would have happened to that little project you're working on, Paul.
That's right. Paul, okay, so here's my suspicion. The short answer is, If you thought about how it would go without the constraint, my suspicion is that I would never finish. If I did not feel any obligation to finish anything by a certain timeline, I think I would lazily work on things indefinitely. And then enough time would go by where my first page would be all the learnings I had made. Like, for example, now I'm on page 42. All the learnings I'd made in the journey to page 42 would make me think that page 1 needs to be redone. So I would go back and do that up to like the level I had learned since then. I think there'd be no pressure. There's that old saying that work is never finished, only abandoned. I would never feel any pressure to abandon it. I would just sit and nurse it and nurse it and nurse it. And like, it would be like every other creative project I attempted before DvsM, where I didn't have a time limit and I would just work on it. Like, I have a novel that's about half finished that I screwed around with for like 10 years because I never had any pressure on myself to ever get anywhere with it. And I just kept circling back and rewriting scenes and doing a new outline and changing stuff around. And like, no, a new approach. And no, I'm going to add this element now. No, this character and this character are going to be combined. And you just kind of play with it forever. And there's never an end game. That would be my fear. I also think best case scenario, even if I did eventually finish it, it would be enormously too long. I'll explain this to the cat. It would take enormously too long to finish. Like, I've always felt, look, I've got 6 books I want to put out. I have 2 out now. The 3rd will be out in a few months. If I'm going to do 6, like, I don't want this to be my life's work. Like, eventually I would like to move on to do other things after I finish DvsM. And if I don't get these out in a sort of reasonable rate, like every other year, like kind of like I'm doing now, I'll spend the next 30 years doing DvsM, and that's not my dream. So that's why.
This is a well-behaved cat.
Yeah, it is.
Louis, take note. All right, I've tortured her enough. And
Paul is he's saying, "Come on, Jimmy, I dare you." So he's feeling scrappy.
What you also have to understand, Paul, is that Gary also has certain friends of his that completely pressure him to even work even faster.
That's right. That's true.
Not
just Squatch. There's another one.
Well, Squatch is just get to work. He says get to work. But Jim says get to work faster.
Oh, no. Squatch absolutely would like me to work 3 times faster. Like, this is... And I know, and there'll be it's just going to be years of agony for him, because before he knows it, DvsM 1979 is going to be on sale. And finally, all this waiting for it, I mean, it'll be like, it's here. And then he's going to get it, and he's going to read it. And now the clock resets waiting for the next one, and he's going to be right back in the agony again of just Gary's not working fast enough.
I kind of want to go straight to the next one because I've heard things.
Yeah,
it's gonna be good
for everybody. Just, I hope this doesn't make Squatch insane with jealousy, but I laid out basically the remaining 3 books for Jim over coffee one day.
Yeah, and I'm one of the only people. So nothing better happened to me. But I can tell you guys, the first 3 DvsMs are like the prequels. And the 4th one will be like episode 4, A New Hope. So, and then well, I hope they get better and better and better. I can't wait. I kind of know what's going to happen coming up on some stuff, but I can tell you for the readers out there, you are in for a treat, and it's getting better and better, and it works. Like, from what I've heard, from what Gary's told me, it really works. And I was like, yes, now I get it. It all ties together, and it's really cool. So I just
I appreciate that.
That's a lot of pressure.
Feel like pressure. We'll see a lot of pressure. I do feel like, look, you can never know how people will react. I still have no expectation. I can't even imagine like what people will think when they read things, but I know that of the three, and I love all the three. They're like my kids. I love all three that I've like, when 75, 97, and then this one, which is almost done. But I do feel like 79 already, it's the one I'm the most proud of, that I think is the most interesting, that it's the most ambitious, that it's the... I do feel like each DvsM has become a more complete expression of the picture of it in my head. Like, I'm getting better at telling a DvsM story the way I imagine it. So however people react to it, I know that I'm already very happy with what I've got, with this one. But
so they're like your kids, except you accept responsibility for them.
Right, exactly. I acknowledge them. I admit that they're mine.
Right, yeah. And you've put money into them and supported them.
Yes, I'll actually. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'll travel for them. I'll take time off.
Yeah, and you'll respond when people talk about them. You'll respond.
Yes.
So they're exactly like your kids. So
Comic Food says, "Don't Rise of Skywalker us. Never. You know why that's not going to happen? And I'm going to try and Return of the Jedi you.
No, Last Jedi.
Or the last. Well, I would, if only I could, the Last Jedi us. But no, people are amazed that somehow Star Wars comes up in every single one of my streams, and I'm not going to talk about Star Wars for 45 minutes this time, as I have the past few weeks.
Don't do it.
But the reason why I'm not going to Rise of Skywalker you is because I've outlined them all ahead of time to all make sense. There's not going to be this just writing it off the cuff at the last minute under the gun. Like, I've thought it all through. Even when 75 came out way back 1,000 years ago, I knew what the last one was going to be. I knew where I was going. So you're in safe hands. Don't worry.
But by the way, Gary, if you were in another dimension, if you were single, and you were on an online dating app or some sort of thing, or social media thing for dating.
Okay.
And a person saw last week's show.
Yes.
You would probably hear crickets, because they would be like, this guy's ranting about Star Wars for 45 minutes.
That's fine.
So thank God for Mary. That's what I'm saying. Thank God.
Oh, wait, I see. We've got another guest. Look at this. It's getting to be a full house here. Mr. Kerr, how's it going, man? Is he there? Or is your audio there?
I believe he can do it.
I think he can. I believe in him.
Corey, if you buy a copy of Windows 10 and install it.
Have you tried restoring everything from your thumb drive? Have you tried... There's a portable... Have you ran this weirdo Linux program that does the thing to the thing?
If you pour Mountain Dew into the disk drive, it should help. And we never saw Corey again.
Yeah, he's gone. Paul Pate asks, what character in DvsM is your equivalent of Vader? I don't know if I can answer that.
Well, that would be Ron Vader.
Ron Vader. Yeah.
He works in the office. He's one of the scientists, but he's not name checked in it.
Yeah, you never actually meet him.
No.
Yeah,
Let's talk a little bit about Ron Vader. Let's go on a tangent.
Now this, I'm glad you're here. This is another thing I wanted to announce. You had a great idea that I felt good about, and I think will be a good combination, peek behind the curtain and soft. I'm assuming Corey will be back when he gets his technical details figured out. But
I believe it.
Corey, just give me a wave when you think you're ready. Jim and I were talking, as we often do, and he suggested that in the run-up, that this might be a fun thing for for the live streams, and it would be also a good run-up to the release of DvsM 1979, is to take finished panels from DvsM 1979, nothing with spoilers, but just panels, and share them with the on the live stream, maybe one a week.
Yeah.
And deep dive into them. Just like all the thought that goes into how I laid it out and choices I made and the characters you're seeing and how just basically me kind of, if you've seen, I've seen a lot, Jim, you probably have too. Once in a while, a movie will come out and you'll see a director kind of break down a scene, like how they'll show like one little scene from a movie that's coming out and that they did and showing like cameras are here and this is how I do the lighting and you'll notice. And they kind of just explain all the thought that goes into this one little like 15-second clip. I was going to do that with some of the panels. I might
Corey's
do it.
Ready, by the way. Corey's ready. I think
Corey's ready.
Yeah.
Corey, are you ready?
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
Okay, good. All right.
Did it.
Sorry. This is me moving out of the garage. It's taking forever.
I understand. I like the mural or whatever's going on that wall back there.
Yeah, I painted it and then I got my art up. So there's a whole, let's see. Yes, that's the best shot you can get. Yeah. So.
And there's no leaking from the ceiling or anything like that.
No snow blowing in from,
I will say that as I was fixing something, I cut through a water main and I had like PTSD as water was spraying everywhere, for a minute as I fixed it. But
Corey, is your legal last name Griswold?
Yeah, how'd you know?
Okay,
Actually, Corey is short for Clark. So.
Okay. Yes, of course. Yes. Yeah, I'm telling you, we're gonna have to go through your house with sage.
Yeah.
I think I'm in now. Now I'm just like, I have to do stuff like this to remind myself, like, oh, half the wires that I ran, I didn't plug into the computer.
Corey's house is built on an ancient Indian plumber's burial ground.
That's my working theory. Is that there's something there. Something. So they're definitely they moved the headstones, but they didn't move the bodies. There's something about that story in there. That's
right. Yeah. There's definitely entertaining things going on in my house, but hopefully we're closer to the end of it. Anyway.
So Gary, we were talking a little bit. Well, Corey, I'll tell you, we were talking the other day a little bit about how both of us were I'm at the very, very tail end of my project, and Gary is just on that mountain. He's just getting to the peak of the mountain before he can start coasting back down. And even the coast down, even the downhill is uphill.
Yeah, yeah.
But
at least I have more of it behind me than I had.
So you do have more of it behind you.
Oh yeah, I'm probably. I think I'm about like 3/4 of the way through.
All right. So, by the way, Leanne just walked into the room, so no cussing.
Okay.
Let her do that.
Paul Pate is asking how many rolls of duct tape I have on hand, and I can confidently say that I am using zip ties and not duct tape. But
zip ties.
But I've
also good for kidnapping.
Yeah, your hostages really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is a little less impressive than zip ties. Every time you open a package, there's usually like those bread bag ties, like the wire that's wrapped in like. Because I'm a weirdo, I have a drawer full of those. Just like I always figure I'm gonna need this for something, and so wires touching the ground always bothered me. So like all of this stuff that I have is like bread bag tied to the bottom of the desk somehow. But yeah.
Hey Corey, I had a coworker tell me the other day. This is very offensive, but he said, "Why would anyone want to move to Idaho?" That's how much they know, but they don't know. I mean, if they knew the secret, everybody.
Well, I don't want to say. I want everybody to stay away from Idaho because that's one of the benefits of it is that no one lives here. Like if everybody in LA realized how inexpensive and awesome and beautiful it is up here, then it would suck and be really expensive and ugly. So, stay in your cities, please. It's. Yeah. I don't know why people live here either. It boggles my mind.
What's the concentration of vape shops in Idaho? Are there plentiful, or are they?
I saw
scattered?
a vape shop the other day about 30 miles away from where I live.
Okay.
I recall seeing it and thinking, oh, that's surprising.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So it's probably the same concentration as you would expect, like as head shops and hookah shops and, you know, all the other smoking paraphernalia shops.
Yeah.
We get high on that, Jim.
And how about comic book shops?
Unfortunately, about the same concentration.
Yeah.
There's one in that same city about 30 miles away, and I think the next one might be an additional 45 miles down the road. So I think I've got two within 150 miles of where I am. Is that right? Yeah, that's probably right. And then past that, there's probably not another one for 250 miles. Yeah, because it would be in Boise or Salt Lake. So it's
so how far? So is that how far you are from Boise? 250 miles.
Roughly, I don't know exactly. I know it's about a 3 to 4 hour drive south to Salt Lake or west to Boise.
Wow!
But some of that is because you're going through, like, it's not like a straight road. Like you're going through mountain passes and stuff.
Yeah.
How about Phoenix?
I don't drive to Phoenix. But
that would be quite a drive.
It's roughly an 8 hour drive to southern Utah. And so it's
probably 4 hours after that, I would guess.
Yeah, how far are you from like St. George, Utah? Like 2 to 4 hours probably?
I don't know where St. George is, but I would think from the Grand Canyon, I'm probably like 4.5 hours, something like that.
Yeah. I feel bad that I got on the stream and it immediately devolved into like dad conversation. Like, let's talk about maps.
That's maps.
Like, I have a friend, really nice guy, but literally every time he gets an opportunity to start talking geography, I'm like, someone please save me. To the point where I have a signal with my wife when we're going to hang out with them.
Oh, no.
She needs to save me if he starts describing bridges or the history of a road. Please, for the love of everything, say anything else.
I mean, Comic Flu says we could talk about Star Wars again, but no, I'm going to try not to, because there's been so much Star Wars talk. Okay. Mary the other day, she was like, "Did you talk about Star Wars again?" And she's really, and I guess I understand. She's really at a loss. It's like, I don't understand how you guys still find something to talk about with this thing that's been around for like 40 years. You know, like, I mean, like what it left, like, hasn't everything been said? Apparently
yes.
Not. I don't know.
Yes, it has.
Maybe it needs to be repeated. Yeah.
But it's not in the saying of it, you know, that somebody else said it. I need to say it, and I need to be told it.
That's right. That's right. Someone needs to hear it.
If you're curious, I am 900 miles north of you. About a 13-hour drive.
Yeah.
So
that's too far.
That's
beyond my driving limit.
That's why this morning when I woke up and checked the weather to see how much clothing I should wear, and it was 7 degrees outside, I was like, okay.
It's been unusually. Oh, drop my phone. Unusually wet and cold here, but that is. I will tell you what that means. It's 64 degrees. So
yeah,
it's about that same here. That's why I'm wearing it.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing the hoodie. Like, that's
freezing, Corey. You don't even know.
Freezing. Yeah. It's actually, the front door might be open, so that's how cold it is.
Shut the front door.
Hey, let me ask you this: are you ever about to post something and then you're like, I'm just gonna go to bed instead, and the next morning you realize a major portion of that thing that you were about to post is not finished?
You mean like a project?
Yeah, just like an image or a project or an animation or something. Like that happens to me more than I would like to publicly admit. Like I will be like, I should sleep on this.
Yeah.
And then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh, there's an entire scene that I'm not done with. Or in this case, like several of these bees have no legs. Like I was doing this whole thing and then I was like, cool, I'm done. And then I went to bed and then I woke up this morning and I'm like, oh yeah, we've got to do some legs on these guys.
What I have done, sometimes I share work in progress stuff, even in the Artcasters chat, where because I know where it's going, to me it looks like acceptable. Yeah. And then after I post it, when I circle back to that message and look at it, I realize like that was really incomplete, and no one else has the benefit of me knowing, where this is going. Like, so I've done that a lot.
When you add the legs to those bees, it'll really be the bee's knees.
Several of them, actually.
Say that.
Wow.
I had to say that. I had to say it.
Nine.
Did you? Did you have to? Did you?
Well, I did.
You did. Yeah. Paul Pate correctly points out that people have been talking about the Bible for like 2,000 years. We can do Star Wars for 40. So there you go.
That's true. It's a very valid point.
Yeah, it's exactly the same, right?
We've got 960 years left.
I have to tell you something. When I had
1,960. Sorry, go ahead.
When I had the dreaded affliction of COVID, like last week or a week and a half ago.
So how are you fully recovered now?
Yeah, I feel like I am. I have a little bit of congestion, but I totally feel better. I felt better for like 3 or 4 days now.
Good.
But I have to say, not posting on social media was really nice. It was really, I had no FOMO, zero FOMO. And it got me to thinking, I think in a few years, 3 or 4 years, I think it's going to be something else. I think we're going to move on from social media. It'll morph into something else. I don't know.
I love that. I'm telling you, Mastodon it feels like late 90s, early 2000s internet. It's just calm, it's chill. There's no compulsive drive to get on there. There's no algorithm to fight. There's just
but Mastodon's like Idaho. Once we get on it, it's gonna be
it's not gonna be exactly
because there was a time.
Give it time.
There was a time when Instagram was like that.
Yeah.
I remember saying, "Oh, I don't like Facebook. People are fighting on all the time and posting political views all the time. I'd rather just see Instagram where I could see some nice drawings, a photo of a landscape, whatever." And now it's like political.
Okay, let me tell you what I.
Well, our girls dancing. They're trying to do the TikTok thing.
Yeah,
right.
That kind of,
Let me tell you, in a way you'll understand, Jim. This is the best description of Mastodon that I can come up with for Jim Lujan. Okay. Do you remember the Simpsons episode where Homer Simpson buys a houseboat?
Vaguely.
There's a joke where he says, the great thing about it is if you don't like your neighbors, you can just pull up anchor and go somewhere else. And as soon as he says that, everyone else in the marina just goes away. And that's Mastodon, because there's so many different instances of it that, like, I'm on an art instance that's the guy's like, as soon as somebody says something like white supremacist or whatever in a different instance, that instance they're just gone. We just pull up anchor and we just drive somewhere else. It's great. I love it.
I've never even looked at Mastodon, so I don't even know how it works or anything, but I'm just waiting for it.
I think I'm going to have somebody on Artcasters at some point to just talk Mastodon, because I feel like I've been searching for Mastodon my whole adult life and not realizing it, because there's no algorithmically driven timeline. It is impossible for like some tech billionaire to come in and buy it and throw a tantrum and whatever. There are no ads, and advertisers have no say on what happens. There's no drive for whatever. It's like community moderated, and it's topic based. So if you don't like a topic, you don't engage with that topic. Also, totally open source and completely not owned by giant conglomerate monopolies that are going to try to topple governments and end democracy. So like it's just not that I'm alluding to anything specific, but it's just
no, yeah.
That's just a nice place.
Hypothetically, yeah.
Hypothetically, not that would ever happen. Not that there would ever be, like.
Can you imagine?
It's science fiction.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. I mean, hypothetically speaking, when the founders of this country decided how things should be, I don't think they had an idea of a business being so large that they could own politicians.
Right.
Because I mean, think of businesses back then, hundreds of years ago. Businesses were like, that blacksmith is doing so well that he owns 3 anvils.
Yeah, I mean, didn't you read about Big Horseshoe back then?
Right. Yeah. Big buggy whip. I mean,
Big T.
And we still had a problem. I mean, we had like plantations and humans owning humans.
Well, or like Carnegie. Like there are people who around the 1900. That's where you probably saw the beginning of like the tycoon that had an inordinate amount of power. But
you did, and at the same time, it was so offensive to the American sensibilities that we enacted huge sweeping laws to destroy that type of behavior because it ruins capitalism.
Right.
Like if someone is so large that they can buy out, kill, or destroy any competition, then capitalism doesn't function because there's no competition.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a change, I think, somewhere. I would peg it around the 40s or 50s, where before that, the tycoon was the villain of the story. I mean, look at It's a Wonderful Life. Like that's a movie where if you made it today, you'd have somebody saying, not just somebody, lots of somebody saying like, oh, that guy's the bad guy because he's done well. Like, I mean, that would be but that was something that took decades of kind of, I'm just going to say propaganda to like this idea that the successful rich entrepreneur is actually the American dream. That's actually the aspiration. And and everything else is like falling short of that. I don't think that existed in any meaningful way before the 40s or 50s. That idea.
20s, because Paul's bringing up the robber barons of the whole idea of the 20s was kind of that at its peak. and before the 1920s, it's not like you didn't have income inequality. But it wasn't seated in business as strong. It was seated in the belief that royalty and landed gentry were somehow innately better than us and called of God to have us be their serfs.
Right. Or the idea that a fairly modern idea that the ideal for business, for capitalism, is for government to be minimally or not involved in it. To not interfere, not participate, not create any guardrails. Whether it comes to banking or giant businesses or anything like that, the idea of like government should be hands off. That's a fairly new kind of unusual take. That before that, no one would have. I think if you'd gotten a time machine and went to the 1900s and said like, oh, we need less government oversight in banking and business, people would look at you like, well, maybe not 1900, because you're still talking about like Slaughterhouse-5 type era and stuff like that, or like sweatshops and orphans working and dangerous work conditions. But I think once you got those reforms in place, and once you had better unions and workers' rights and things like that, I don't know, there was kind of a nice little era in there where everyone was on the same page.
It's oscillated back and forth. I wouldn't agree with the fact that it's a new concept, because the whole centralized versus decentralized power has been an argument since the beginning of time, and that's largely what the great compromises of the Constitution of the United States is based on, is like, how much are we okay with different bodies of government of different sizes having power of? But it does go back and forth quite a bit.
Yeah,
for sure. But anyway, it's just nice. It's nice to see some old school internet. Like, I feel like it's like, remember 2.0, Web 2.0, and that was like user generated content and everybody was really excited. This is like Web 1.75.
Corey, you need to do a video on it.
Yeah. We need Mastodon 101. Like, what's the pitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The pitch is just like, have either of you ever been like sick for an extended period of time and then you're not sick and you have forgotten what it was like to feel just healthy?
Yeah. Well, probably Jim just did recently. Maybe.
Never.
Yeah. No, I'm talking like I lived in Scotland for a number of years and I didn't realize that I had become lactose intolerant in Scotland. And so I just felt ill for like 2.5 years. And then finally, when I realized that I had become lactose intolerant and I cut dairy out of my diet, I went back to like a normal state and I had become used to like feeling like crap all the time. Like I had forgotten what it's like to be at like a normal homeostasis. And I feel like that's Mastodon. Like I had forgotten, and this is me, I had forgotten what it feels like to not have my data mined and have an algorithm try to manipulate me every second that I'm on a website. And I was like, oh, this is like a refreshing, nostalgic feeling before like surveillance capitalism existed.
Did you say that when you were in Scotland, you were Catholic intolerant? Did I hear you?
I'm Protestant intolerant. I equally hate. I'm intolerant of everything.
That's a hot take. Is that the sort of hot take you could expect to read on Mastodon?
No, you probably could get defederated for that. So.
Yeah.
So Corey, really, I would love to see like a little pitch of like, look, here's why I like Mastodon, and here's because I've never even seen it, what the interface looks like. I've never seen. I don't know anything about it, and I just here's my thinking. The common man's thinking is. For one, I'm not that. I've never been married to Twitter. I'm not. Twitter could go by tomorrow, and it wouldn't affect my life really.
It's the same. I'm the
I
same.
don't really care.
Yeah.
And my other thinking is, do I really need? Am I that hungry for social media? I'm kind of at the other side. I'm kind of at the side of like, kind of getting a little bit tired of social media. The only benefit for me of social media is right now to the left and right of me. No, it really is. It's It's the relationships, and it's also is discovering new art, new things like that. But as far as discussions go, and like opinions and stuff like that, I think I've just been overloaded the last 6 years or so. So, but if you did a video on Mastodon, I would check it out, and I would have an open mind towards it.
Yeah,
I think I'm in a similar space, and that I was going to suggest, could it be almost generational, where because most of my life was lived without social media, like what you just said about Twitter, like if Twitter went away, it wouldn't change your life. I almost feel that way about social media in general. Like if it went away, like if somehow for some reason it was like, oh, you know what, this is all illegal, we're killing it. Like I don't know how dramatically that would affect. The only way it would affect me is like, so how, because the vast majority of my use of social media is Facebook Messenger to talk to like you guys and other friends. So I think that would be the thing. It's like, so how am I touching base with people? But otherwise, use it to promote like the comic. What's that?
If I could convince you guys to get onto Signal instead of Facebook Messenger, then I feel like my life would be complete because I could just get rid of all of the people surveilling my conversation and mining it to advertise to me for things.
Right.
By the way, can we talk for a minute about how terrible the layout of Facebook is?
It really is
bad. I went to post something as Jim Lujan animation, and I finally figured out how to switch accounts. So I did, from personal to, and I did, and then I went into my page, my animation page, and I was going to post a link, and I felt like I was reading one of those clickbait ads. Like there were so many like ads and things like I'm like, where do you post? Like, and then things just get buried in the feed, and it's just really ugly.
It's a terrible visual experience. Like the GUI is like it's hard to tell. Yeah, I've noticed that especially on the like the group or business page. Like when I go to the DvsM Facebook page, I don't understand why it's so incomprehensible to me.
Yeah.
Why isn't it identical to my personal? You know, why is the layout changing just because I'm in? But I've always thought, I remember, I mean, that's always been Facebook to me, because I remember when I switched from MySpace, which I liked MySpace. It's just MySpace was sort of dying. And I remember I had dragged my feet switching to Facebook because every time I looked at it, I was like, this looks like ass. Like this just looks, it just looks bad. It looks like a weird data entry program in a hospital. Like it's just, it doesn't look like it has no flair. It has no interest in like accommodating just like a person visually perusing it and finding what they want to find. It's just like, it's like it was made by a robot, you know? It's just purely like, here is the information, human, you know? And it's, I can't, it definitely, it doesn't, it's not a pleasurable experience. Anyway, but when it comes to social media, the thing I think of all the time, it was some comedian who had posted this, ironically, on social media. I think about it probably 2 times a week. He said, I don't know what I'm looking for every time I open one of these things, but I've never found it. You know, and that's kind of been like always been my reaction to Facebook, to Twitter, to any, like YouTube. I do enjoy actually a fair bit.
YouTube, I think to me is the king of them all. It's like the most, I watch YouTube more than I watch television, but even YouTube has a really terrible algorithm. You need to know what to look for. When I go to suggestions, it's always garbage. Yeah, that's but out of all of those, to me, I find it the most valuable. Instagram used to be really, really cool, but it's kind of, it feels like a little bit like Facebook now, and it's super preachy. And in every direction, it's super preachy. And
every third, I don't know about you, but it's like every third post on your feed is a sponsored or
exactly.
You know, it's like it's none of this. I'm not following any of these people.
Or a suggested,
like, I don't know who these are.
Yeah, it suggested somebody's feed, and I'm like, if I wanted to follow that person, I would have followed them. Like, why are they appearing on my feed? So yeah,
you guys are just describing everything that you would love about Mastodon.
Well, maybe, but I tell you
what I want is a Facebook, a Mastodon equivalent of Facebook. What I want is like some kind of crowd-funded, no ad, no algorithm version of Facebook with a logical timeline that shows the people, my friends, their activity and posts from most to least recent. Like, that's all I want. Like, just, that's it. Like, it's very basic.
It exists, my friend. You just have to get your friends on it. And that's the challenge is there's this whole argument about interoperability where these walled gardens, and the EU is actually working to regulate out like forced walled gardens. You know, like they forced Apple to change from their own thing to a USB-C plug just because of interoperability. But if you could do that with social media or whatever, then you guys could stay on Facebook Messenger and have Zuckerberg read every word that you say, and I could be on something else with a hook into Facebook Messenger and still have a conversation with you. And so we wouldn't be forced to use things just because we started there and everybody is there. Which would, and it almost sounds like, you know, to a free market capitalist, they would be like, no, get out of everybody's business or whatever. But if you take a step back, you would be using the stuff that made the best user experience. And you would be using the stuff that was the best for the consumer. And so if everybody was like, yeah, I don't want to leave Facebook because, you know, my grandma's there and all my aunts and uncles and cousins are there and everything. And it's like, okay, well, what if you don't have to leave them, but you can go do a different thing and tie into that system and you still get to see their stuff. It's basically like RSS, you know, back when that worked. Then Facebook would have to and I'll just finish really quickly. Then Facebook would have to wake up and actually give people what they want, rather than basically tout, the thing of like, if you leave, you're actually.
Is that what Mastodon is?
Yeah, Mastodon is interoperability.
Because I assumed Mastodon was just like a Twitter, but like more without all of the drama.
No, I mean it is. The difference is that it's impossible to buy Mastodon because it's open source and it's called federated, which means that, like, imagine a bunch of different islands that have all decided to communicate with each other. Each island, you have an art island, and you've got a crochet island, and you've got a politics island, and a whatever island. And whatever island you are most interested in living on, you go live on that island, but you can still communicate with everybody else, until one island is like, they go nuts and they start spewing a bunch of, hate speech and stuff. We just kind of cut ties with that island, and they can keep doing their thing because they're still using a Mastodon instance, but all of the other islands get to choose whether they are federated with them or not.
So forgive the kind of what's probably a dumb question, but so is that I'm relating it to, I used to be a little more active on message boards.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's
where that's sort of like you're looking at a list of topics and you jump in and you decide you're going to have, conversations in there, but, you're not really seeing, there might be a topic about January 6th and I'm in the, no thanks, I'm in the Skyrim topic, or whatever. Like, is it sort of like that? How is that? But it's like a Twitter format, but basically
it's like that, except, all of those different forums, you could, instead of going on one forum and choosing a topic within that forum, there's hundreds of forums with hundreds of topics in each of those forums. And I can choose to bring into my own feed whichever forum I want and eliminate any topic that I never want to see. So if you never want to see anything about January 6th, you could say any post that has this word in it, just don't show it to me, and it'll never show up.
Okay, so you have a lot more control over kind of curating what's being shown to you.
Yeah, and it's 100% chronological. There are zero algorithmic things, and so the only reason that I would see something that I don't follow is if somebody I follow, for lack of a better term, retweets that,
right.
And then I would see it. And if somebody is retweeting stuff I don't like, I just unfollow them, and then all of that stuff goes away. So there's no computer or governing body or tech giant that decides like, oh, you're 43 years old and into Star Wars, so I'm going to show you this thing. There's no one, and because there's no benefit to that because there are no advertisers. And so there's no reason to try to lead me down a road.
So it's crowdfunded. So, and it's I know it's experiencing like a ton of growth right now because of the Twitter diaspora, so Is there a point where it could outgrow its ability to manage that because of the limitations of crowdfunding? Where is the end game with this? Where is it?
So you're not required to post on it or to pay for it, right?
Right.
I donate a couple bucks to the server that I'm on because there are server costs. The instance that I'm on is mastodon.art, and they reached the number of users that they wanted on that server, and so they just shut down new instances or new people applying. And then after there was this spike and everybody was trying it out, a few thousand people stopped being active, and so they opened up a few thousand extra spots. But because it's just hundreds of different servers, anybody who wants to can just spin up a new server with it.
Okay.
And so yeah, if there's no one who wants to spin up a new instance of it, then yeah, you could technically reach an upper limit.
Right. But, if 20 million people joined today and none of them wanted to contribute money wise.
Yeah,
is that even feasible? Can that happen?
It depends on what they're doing. If each one of those people wanted to treat it like YouTube and upload like really processor heavy, data rich stuff like videos, then that would be problematic. But if they're getting on there to post a picture here or there and then write some things
and hashtag things,
not as much. So it depends. But yeah, it would. There's no one funding it other than people using it. And so
what I'm trying to tease out is like, what I'm curious about is there therefore then like kind of an ideal and relatively small size this thing can naturally be?
I don't know how to answer that because
I mean, I don't know if there is an answer.
But all of it's so hypothetical because each one of those possibilities is contingent on everyone deciding one thing, which is but I mean, there might be somebody out there that's so into pugs that they want an instance that just talks about pugs, and then there would be a bunch of other people that would be interested in that, and hundreds of thousands or millions of other people that wouldn't be. Right. So I mean, I think like the interest-based thing and that type of stuff, thinking of people as a monolith becomes kind of problematic. So yes, you could come up with a lot of different ways that it could stop working or run out of space. Mm-hmm. But I also think that just human beings being varied and random kind of eliminates that, because you're always going to have somebody who's like, yeah, I'd be down to start a new instance or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I mean, technically somebody could start an instance that's advertising driven, and I guess there would be people out there.
All right, Corey, what if you started, I don't know if it'd be considered an instance or of an Artcasters one. And then we all said, okay, we're going to sign up just to specifically communicate on that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I know of, though I don't follow, instances that are just like the Kerr family, and it's just 100 cousins that get together and share pictures of their family and talk about family stuff. And there's just nothing. There's nothing else to it. So you could totally do something like that, and it would be fine. And your server cost would be storage and data traffic. So that's definitely possible. You'd have to have at least one person who's interested in doing a little techie stuff of like, that. Paul, I will follow you if you choose to be the techie person on that. But I don't want to do it. See, I'm one of those guys. I'm happy to produce content for it and interact with people and stuff, but I don't want to run the server.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that theoretically you could have an Artcasters. You could have you could have a Jim Lujan server that's just or Bill Plimpton or whatever, just fans of this thing, and it would just be people that would just jump on there and do that. It's basically a system where you can share content, connect. It's like I wrote a book on social media, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and I had to define what social media was and what it isn't. And I came up with like 4 things that make social media, and you have to have all 4 of those things. And it has all 4 of those things in their like purest and most basic form. And you can take that and run with it in a bunch of different directions, but it just is the most basic level of social media. It's just, you're able to connect with each other. You're able to create and share content. You can see the different things that's going on, and that's pretty much it. But when you're elsewhere, there's other things like advertisers and businesses, and like nobody's really trying to sell each other on stuff. It's in fact, there's an argument going on right now of whether Mastodon should even be called social media and refer to it more as social networking, because it's actually not like media based, from the definition of media being like corporations creating content. It's media based in that, it shares images and text and things. Anyway, so yeah, you could. I don't know.
I'll check it out. I'll check it out. I definitely am not at a place where I want more social media obligations, but I mean, if this, I don't know, we'll see what happens. If anything, maybe I just want to reserve my name on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a way to do less. It's a way to still engage with people and have it be less addicting and less whatever. Like, I mean, like recently, Facebook did a study or Meta did a study because Instagram is scientifically and directly linked to adolescent depression and anxiety.
Right.
And they did a study that proved that they could reduce adolescent anxiety and depression. But then they decided not to do it because it would have cost them less than 1% of their profit.
Right.
Whereas there's zero profit motive on Mastodon and other type of federated open source networks. And so nobody would ever make that decision because there'd never be, well, do I choose to take less money or do I choose to do the right thing? It's just,
especially when you have shareholders involved, like you're kind of, there's just no way to make a decision like that in any direction other than more money.
Right. And that's because anytime you go public with something or purchase something, because that's Twitter's problem right now, very few people are actually understanding Twitter is having problems right now, not because Elon Musk is a giant toddler that has the attention span of, like a 12-year-old boy, but it's because he saddled the company with like $1 billion of interest debt a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he's got to, it immediately means that you've got to cut jobs and increase profits, because whereas before it never was like a huge cash cow. It was profitable, but it wasn't profitable like the other things in the tech space.
And it wasn't always profitable,
Yeah, not every year. Mm-hmm. Not every year. Yeah. But now it has to be like,
right.
Yeah, it has to.
Well, like the time is, like he needs it to start. But I don't look. I'm not claiming to follow this very closely, but the little bit I have, I don't know how you get it to make up that deficit. I'm very skeptical there's any end game here that doesn't involve Twitter declaring bankruptcy. I just don't see how. There's no way, like in every kind of crazy idea he's come up with to make money off this thing, like it wouldn't even touch the amount that he needs. So yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's one thing that he could do, and it would be to the detriment of the platform. But if he were able to convince like the news agencies to like pay him like a couple $1 million a year, or something, because I mean, it is a driver of traffic towards journalism, which is problematic in a number of different ways. But from the user base, to me, it's like, imagine a person who doesn't have a degree, isn't super intelligent, and they're able to earn, their earning potential is limited, but they bought a house for like $50,000, like 20 years ago. And as long as they maintain that house, they really only need $500 or $600 a month to survive.
Mm-hmm.
They're fine. They're never going to be wealthy, but they can be comfortable even,
You know what? This whole Twitter.
And real quick, but then that person buys a $400,000 house and now has to pay $4,000 a month in a mortgage. Like all of a sudden, they're going to have to start cooking meth or selling organs. Like, what I mean? Like really quick money fast that they don't have the capability to make. And that's kind of where Twitter was, is they were like a person with not a lot of opportunity, but a very low cost of living. Right. All of a sudden they own a mansion now.
Yeah.
Not that a $400,000 house is a mansion, but I live in Idaho. So yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say, Jim?
Well, I was going to, as a consumer, this whole, like Apple did it and Twitter's doing it. Facebook did it, Meta. But I'm just getting really sick of these like corporations coming out saying, Okay, here's the new deal. It's going to be worse for you, and you're just going to get used to it. Okay?
Yeah.
Right.
So here's your thing. It's going to get worse. Now McDonald's, we're not giving out bags for the fries anymore. So you're going to have to carry them, but you'll get used to it.
You're going to have to cup your hands, and we will spoon them in your hands.
Used to it. In 10 years, this will be the norm. You'll get used to it.
Eventually, your hands will callous from the grease burns.
Yeah, it's fine.
And it won't hurt.
Yeah.
No, I think, well, this was the problem is, like, I think so many of these, for years and years and years, most of their companies' lives, they were basically operating at a loss and they were just trying to grow user base. So they're trying to give users whatever will make them happy and do everything they can. Like, and now they're finally getting to a point, a lot of these places where it's like, you can't do that forever. Like eventually we got to transition this.
I get it, but it's on them because it would be like equivalent to me saying, I've given you my movies for free now. From now on, each movie I put out is going to cost $40.
Right.
I would have 0 views. And if they're going to start charging for Twitter, charging for this stuff, and people are going to walk away. They're just going to, because
100%.
I think they're overestimating how addicted people are to social media.
How much they need it. Yeah.
They're overestimating.
And they are. It's definitely a compulsion. And it'd be very difficult for some people to walk away. And I bet some people would happily pay whatever they're asked. But I want to believe, but maybe I'm projecting. Maybe, again, this is the generational difference. I have to believe that the majority of people, the vast majority of people would be like, fuck this. I'm only doing it because it's free.
Exactly.
You know, like,
exactly.
Yeah, like I don't need this. Like, How many times have I ignored this sort of YouTube subscription thing, even though those ads are highly irritating? I won't even subscribe to Spotify. I've been listening to so many dipshit ads on my Spotify, because it's like, no, I'm not going to spend, like, it's like this experience you're giving me is worth this much to me. Like, like I'm not going to pay for it. And
so you name the 2 services that I do pay for.
Yeah.
Right. I don't pay for any. I can't think of any.
And Spotify,
the only subscription service other than Netflix.
So I
have like an Xbox.
I pay for YouTube, but it's worth it. It's completely worth it to me. I don't pay for Spotify, but I do use a paid Spotify account. I'm on somebody's membership as a family member. Yeah. But if I had to pay for Spotify, I would. For one, morally, it's right, because I listen to Spotify all day long. I'm listening. Right. It's like having every album.
I think morally, I'm gonna push back a little bit. Morally, it's equivalent because you're listening to ads. Like, so it's not like it would be, I think, unethical if you're listening to music on Spotify and as soon as an ad stops, you close the window. And then tomorrow you open Spotify again and you listen to music until there's an ad and then shut it off. I think that's sort of shitty, but the main reason I won't pay for Spotify is I'm on iTunes and I download albums. Like, I pay and download, and I've got this vast music library I guess it's not iTunes anymore. It's like music or whatever, where I'm so deeply entrenched in that I can't even really wrap my brain around how I would pivot to Spotify.
So the thing I love about Spotify, and it's the same thing with YouTube, is that I can find the rarest, oldest, like out of print albums. I can listen to stuff like, oh, there that is, or I didn't know this was on here. I can listen to stuff. I can discover new stuff. It's just great. Like, somebody comes out with a brand new album and I would never download that album because I really don't care, but I can go and listen to their album and be like, wow, I'm a new fan. Like, ultimately it is a good thing for the artist in that way. I know financially it's not that great for them.
Yeah.
And then YouTube is the same thing. YouTube is, if you know what you want on YouTube, it's the greatest thing ever. If you don't know what you want, it's horrible for the suggestions. But
now I'll confess a slightly unethical thing.
But again, that's kind of not social media. Both of those. I know YouTube has comments, but it's really not, in my opinion, it's not an interactive, as much. It has that element, but it's not quite.
It can be, but I think the vast majority of.
How is it not social media?
Well, no. I'm saying it is, but it's less, because you could, in theory, go on YouTube and never communicate with another human being ever.
Yeah.
Never read a comment. Never engage with somebody. You can
But,
just
but
watch
you're
it.
watching user-generated content. Content.
Well,
Right.
So that's what I was going to
you're not
admit as
interacting
a
with them.
small ethical thing that I'm not comfortable with when I really think about it. I would say a full 30%, maybe more, of my YouTube usage is finding bits of movies I love just to revisit that scene. So
Or
okay, so
Saturday Night Live skits too.
yeah, so yeah, it's basically I'm content that someone who doesn't own it cut up and shared on YouTube, and like I'm sitting and watching it. Now, to be fair, almost everything I'm watching is like some movie I own on disc somewhere in my living room. But like that's a large amount. If you look at my YouTube history, it's a lot, like, especially when we're doing like top 5 movies, top 5 whatever, like me like revisiting little parts of movies. But I'm doing that all the time. I'm looking up like Bespin lightsaber duel, or I'm looking up whatever, and I'm just watching that thing.
Gary, I've seen your YouTube history. It's all Taylor Swift, and what's disturbing is it's all young Taylor Swift.
I know.
So,
I don't like her once she became 18. I wasn't interested.
So swiftly, I must say this: my phone is going to die right now. I've got like almost 0 battery. Last thing, I just say this before I go. I just saw a headline come up right now. Some guy named Elon Zuckerberg just bought Macedon.
Wow,
so, it's crazy.
Weird. Which is impossible to do, but yeah,
impossible to do.
He made it happen
because he made it happen.
Yeah.
He's like, the majority. He's the majority crowdfunder.
It's like Zuckerberg and
Musk. All of the leftovers in Ohio.
They morphed. Zuckerberg and Musk, their energies combined, and their eyes are glowing now, and now they're one creature, and they made it happen, Corey. Now you must accept the mark. Mark of the beast. I just realized it. I figured it out.
Oh no, you've unraveled the whole thing.
Oh,
and you're on YouTube, so this is the right place to say that entire conspiracy and gain a ton of followers. So
yeah, I got to go online, you guys. Okay, I'm gonna go tweet that out. Thanks, guys. See you, Corey. Bye.
See you later. Jim Lujan, everybody. We have it on good authority that his latest film. Or not? Well, it's not really a film. Well, what is the right word for this? Animated feature.
Yeah, they're a short.
His latest animated work, latest animated feature, latest animated film, latest film, whatever vocabulary you want to use, is very, very close to completion. And I think we're probably within a month of maybe seeing the next piece of work from Jim Lujan, and I'm very excited about it. So
yeah, it'll be good.
Paul Pate, let's see here. I find this conversation fascinating, but to sound condescending, I think it is way overthought. You can tailor social media to your liking. Well, Paul, you wouldn't be the first person or even the 100th person in my life to accuse me of overthinking. So it's I will concede that is a distinct possibility.
And I will say that it is also possible to, tailor your highway experience to your liking, but there are some limits, that involve other people and laws and legislation and stuff. And so if you're doing that with Facebook or YouTube or whatever, I can tailor that to my liking to an extent, as long as I'm tailoring it within the parameters that the company that owns that allows me to tailor it. So there's some. I always like having these conversations with Paul in the chat, because he always calls out when I'm not explaining something well or when I'm totally wrong.
Yeah,
it's good.
No, I've noticed it. I forgot there was some other. I don't remember if it was an Artcasters or if it was on this stream or something. There was a whole social media thing, and it was refreshing to have Paul's perspective, the perspective of someone who is less cynical and concerned and critical, just for that balance, because I do appreciate, what's that?
I remember exactly what it was. It was you and I talking about AI art.
Oh, was it AI art? Yeah.
And Paul was saying, that history bends towards the good,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's good to like just to add like some well-roundedness to the conversation, even if maybe a person disagrees with a take. It's nice to have the variety, because a lot of these conversations, I think, especially you and I, are pretty much on the same page. You know, like there's little differences on the margins, but generally it's like we're kind of echoing each other, where it's nice to get like another take.
I think that page is, you want to talk about Star Wars and are allowing me to rant on your channel until I'm done.
No, I don't. Star Wars, I've said everything I need to say about Star Wars for the time being. I'm sure it'll be revisited, but I recapped the value of Andor last stream, and
you got nothing else to say.
Nothing has happened since then. I have not started Tales of the Jedi. I'm curious about it. I've heard good things.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think the stumbling block is the animation style, the look of it. But I'll probably, because they're minis, like it's a minimal commitment on my part to watch them. So I probably will try to watch a few.
I found it to be less interesting, exciting, and valuable than it was promised by everybody.
Okay.
Everybody was just like, it's the best thing, it answers all these questions, and there's all this stuff, and then I watched it and I was like, sort of.
Yeah, I would not be shocked, but I just, because that seems like about my reaction to a lot of the stuff at that genre of Star Wars. It's always kind of something that I'm kind of underwhelmed by. But
I also feel
I'm always open to a great Star Wars experience. As cynical and as jaded as I might seem on some of these conversations, I'm still, this might be a shock, at the end of the day, I deeply love Star Wars. You can only get this frustrated with something if you deeply love it. So I mean, you're not going to see me get agitated and talk a lot about something I don't care about, you know? So, but I'm always, every new thing, even if I'm skeptical or disinterested, there's like, I'm willing and open to give it a try and would be delighted to love it. And case in point, Andor. Like, I came into that feeling like maybe I'm over Star Wars or new Star Wars or whatever. And I totally was head over in love with Andor. So it just shows it's not like, oh, I just don't care about this shit anymore. But
and speaking of you not ranting about things that you don't care about, your silence on the most recent chess cheating championship stuff has been noted.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I did. Actually, so okay, so speaking of algorithms, YouTube seems to think I will be interested in this because it keeps suggesting videos to me about this chess cheating thing.
Yeah.
And I admittedly, I know that is all I know about it, that headline, that someone was maybe or was cheating, like some grandmaster or something. Do you have like a summary, like a spine of what this thing is? What
I maybe only slightly more aware of it than you, but then I think it's, this is going to get into something that's a little bit interesting. I think it's the method that they assumed he was cheating with that made the story.
How would one cheat at chess in a tournament setting? I don't even understand that.
So it's live. It's being broadcast live. Okay.
Right.
And you can have somebody off somewhere running an algorithm that anticipates, hundreds of different outcomes per move.
So how are they feeding that information to the player?
This is where the initial reports, and I haven't looked into it past this for a number of reasons. The initial reports, I think, made it kind of newsworthy, is because there was an accusation that he was using a remote controlled cellular butt plug that vibrates.
What?
And so there would be a certain number of vibrations and length. It was basically like,
or like the chessboard, like a letter and a number, or something, just to like in chess vocabulary, how to move where a piece should go.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, if somebody is able to memorize, like the amount of skill that it takes to be able to do it that way,
that's almost more impressive than playing well. Like,
I don't know how substantiated that is, but that's the extent of my knowledge is that.
But I mean, how else? Because he can't have an earpiece. He would see that. Like, there has to be something like that. That's something that's like he's having to decode.
And I mean, it could be a similar device like embedded under his skin.
Just something in his pocket. Like it could be anything that did subtle enough to.
Well, they do like do some minimal searches and stuff. But
well, now I hate to admit this.
Now
I'm intrigued. Now I feel like I do want to know what the fuck happened here, because that's fascinating.
I don't want to try to find the answer to that, because I can't imagine what type of results I would get from any of the searches that I could think of that might give me the answer. Right. So if you can discover whether that accusation had any credence,
I'll try to get this. I'll try to get the scoop. I actually, and maybe YouTube is right. It'll be interesting to see if YouTube is right. Like if I go down this rabbit hole, it's like, no, I'm fascinated now, because I do actually love chess. I'm not great, and I haven't played in 1,000 years. I used to be okay. I bet now I haven't played in 1,000 years. I'm sure I've lost my edge. But and one of my favorite documentaries of all time is oh my God, what was the name of it?
I hate documentaries, so I can't help you.
I gotta find this because I want to point people toward it. It was about Kasparov's matches against Deep Blue, IBM's chess playing computer. Let's see here.
I remember that happening when I was in school and people talking about it.
It was really interesting. Let's see here. Hold on. I'm going to get the name for people.
Now imagine this.
Game over. It's just game over. Okay. So just for people who might be unfamiliar with this was back, I don't remember when this was. It was probably like the 90s or something. IBM, it was almost like it was an aspirational thing for them, where they wanted to have the first computer that could beat a grandmaster at chess. Like that was now it's like not as crazy an idea, but at the time that was sort of the thing they were shooting for. It's like, if we can finally get a chess playing computer that can beat a real life grandmaster, like we have arrived, and we'll be able to use that to show our silicon kung fu is righteous to the whole world forever. Okay, so there was this arms race among the silicon people to kind of come up with the program that could do that. Garry Kasparov, he's still around. He's a good, effective, and harsh critic of Putin's Russia. Maybe people are kind of familiar with him in that realm, but he was one of the greatest chess players of all time once upon a time. And so he agreed to do I forgot how many game series tournament against Deep Blue, the IBM chess playing computer. In the first game, he just wiped the floor with it, just totally destroyed this thing, not even close. And it was interesting. It's interesting hearing him talk about it in the documentary. Up until that point, at least, chess playing computers were fair if you were good enough. Like I couldn't beat a chess playing computer in that era, but if you knew what you were doing, they were very gameable. Because they were very I think the word they would use is materialistic. They were very material oriented. And what that means in terms of chess playing is they're very easy to bait. If you kind of leave a piece out in the open that it could capture, the program would always favor capturing a piece. It was most interested in like material gains in a chess game. And since you know that, you can game it. You can sort of like, you're basically baiting the software all the time, like misdirecting it by sacrificing pieces while you're setting up a bigger thing. And the computer gets this tunnel vision where it's just so happy that it's capturing pieces, it's not really appreciating what you're doing. And then before you know it, and that's, so Kasparov kills it the first game.
It's always interesting to me when we are describing systems like that and you use human emotion. Because you just said that he was happy.
Yes.
Today,
yes. I clearly, I mean, I'm anthropomorphizing like crazy.
I know, but
like it's favoring captures. Like that's probably the most antiseptic way to describe it, is the sterile way to describe it, is it favors captures above all else.
Well, and that wasn't a criticism. I don't think it's
no, I know. I appreciate it. No, that's I totally got what you meant, but it's true. So the IBM people, they did a post-game press conference. Kasparov is jubilant, he's because he had been talking a big game leading into it, like, oh, this is not going to be a problem at all. I'm going to murder this thing. And the IBM guys were also very confident. And just to get totally killed the way they did, you can tell like a lot of glum faces up there among the IBM team.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, we're going to go back to the drawing board before game 2, which is, I don't know if it was the next day or a couple days later, but they have all these reams of paper printouts of like the game's logic and seeing where it's, falling short. And it's like, we're going to do some tweaks tonight, for the next game.
Yeah.
If I remember right, and this is where my memory of it is a little fuzzy, I think Kasparov might have even won the second game as well. But by the time I think it was either the second or third game, there was a point in the match where Kasparov is doing his normal thing, where it's like, this is a way I'm going to bait and switch the program.
Right.
And every time he had done this up until that point, the computer reacted in a very predictable way to this. Mm-hmm. But this time, it absolutely did not take the bait, like in a very kind of conspicuous way. And Kasparov, as soon as he sees this, like you can see on his face during the game, like you can tell he wants to just call bullshit. Like that he is convinced that there is an engineer in the back somewhere that's watching Deep Blue's thinking on a screen and sees that it's going to fall for this again and steps in and interrupts. It's like, no, don't do that. So he's 100%. And then from that point on, like Deep Blue is like murdering Kasparov for the rest of the series and ends up winning the tournament. Yeah. And Kasparov has always maintained like there was fuckery. Like there's no way the computer behaved in that way. It was very like human, like playing. Someone was behind the scenes seeing how the computer is being manipulated and stepping in to course correct. Mm-hmm. IBM, of course, is like, nope. Sour grapes, bitter tears, bad loser. Like, no, we just made the most amazing chess program. And it's kind of it's an open question. And what's interesting long-term is that Kasparov, like losing to this computer, he was never the same. Like it kind of broke his confidence. It kind of shook him. It kind of made him, and like he never played the same even against human players after that. It was just this huge point in his chess career. It's a fascinating documentary. I highly recommend it for anyone who's interested in chess, interested in like, that kind of software side of chess playing computers, interested in Kasparov. It's a very important and interesting part of his biography. But yeah, it's a great documentary.
Yeah. Have you watched Queen's Gambit?
No, I haven't. A lot of people have recommended it to me, but I have not.
Yeah. Paul has a quote that I think is appropriate for the best approach to chess.
Is this if my opponent was willing to go the butt plug route, I think he deserves the win. I think that's a strong case to be made. Like that's a commitment to the game. It's
the one after that. I'll tell you,
Hey, Ronnie.
I learned to play chess when I was 6 from my grandpa.
Yes.
Camping one time.
Yeah.
And my game never really improved from then. but I am an incredibly frustrating player only if you know what you're doing. Like I dated a girl in high school who was like on the chess team, and I would beat her every single time. And it's because she was like, you're the most chaotic, erratic player. Like you have no, and it's not that I don't think ahead. It's just that I don't think ahead in a way that I've been trained to, you know?
Yeah.
And whereas they've got all the gambits and what, and I'm sure somebody who actually knows what they're doing would just wipe the floor with me.
Yeah.
I'm talking just a high school student, right? But
sure.
I mean, but she would always complain that it was really frustrating to play me because it would be like, I remember reading a book one time where a guy like broke his sword, but kept fighting with this broken sword. And everybody was really freaked out because he had become more dangerous since it was like reckless abandon with this, like still very sharp, but now broken weapon. They're like, well, now I don't know what to do because he's not following the rules, you know?
Right.
And so anyway, there is some of that. So I do agree with this quote that if you're playing like a moderate level player, then you know, jump in and just enjoy things.
And I think in all things, like whether it's chess or boxing or anything like that, there is definitely a danger in kind of the amateur.
Oh yeah.
If you're not like expert level, if you're just well versed, the danger is you get very comfortable playing other people who kind of know what they're doing, and therefore you expect them to behave in that way, you know.
Also,
and so the most dangerous opponent is someone who has no idea what they're doing, and therefore you can't predict them because they're going to do things that are reckless or risky, or, you know, just all sorts of things that you're not even used to preparing for. But
well, look at you know, I mean, look at like Putin right now.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. We're like, well, we don't logically, none of this makes any sense. So it's really hard to guess what's going to happen next because there's this horrible threat that is possible, but at the same time, it's only possible because we think he's acting totally irrationally.
Right. You know? Rational actors are fairly predictable. Like, and you can game out, well, they'll probably either do this or this, or this if this, that if that, you know. But as soon as you feel like you're dealing with someone who's just flailing, it's like, well, who knows? Like, it's
no. I played volleyball in high school, and if I see someone on a volleyball court lacing their fingers like this, I won't play. Like, I'll step off, I'll be a line judge, or I'll just pass. I'll never leave the ground. And it's because I can almost guarantee that person is going to break someone's ankle because they don't know. They're going to jump forward and accidentally land under the net as they're trying to block somebody, and, you know, or someone is going to get really seriously injured because that person has no idea what's going on.
Right. Oh, I learned, and I want to be very careful with this. Like, I'm not claiming to be any sort of a badass, but when I was in high school and early college, I was very into like boxing and martial arts. I was sort of fascinated with that. And so I did a lot of sparring, and I learned very quickly the last person, what we used to do is sometimes we'd get together our gloves and stuff, and we would like say, hey, if anyone wants to come along and spar a little bit, like, you should join us, you know. And you very quickly learn the last person you want to box or spar with, kickbox, is someone who has no idea what they're doing. Because like that, like it's kind of again, it's that same thing. Like, if someone kind of knows what they're doing, they become a little, you understand the parameters, and it becomes slightly more predictable. If someone is sort of like, I've never done this before, I'm just going to start throwing wild swings and being crazy and doing stupid shit, like, you get hit, you get surprised, like, it's spooky. So.
And Paul agrees, Queen's Gambit is awesome.
Yes, I gotta check it out.
If you like that documentary, it's the girl who kind of looks like a goldfish.
Yeah, she looks like an alien a little bit. Yeah, she's Anya Taylor-Joy or Anna Taylor-Joy, something like that.
She does a phenomenal job. It's very well done, really interesting, and it's kind of without spoiling anything, it is very similar to Mad Men, both in the era and themes and overarching themes.
Okay.
So it's a very interesting show.
Yeah, I mean, that might be a nice thing to check out when I'm out of drawing mode and I'm in the in-between kind of R&R and writing the next one mode. Like that's usually where I try to gorge on all the media I've put off because I've been drawing. So maybe that will be one of the things. But
yeah, that'd be good. It's a good one.
I really enjoyed chess for a while. It's hard to find people to play, and I don't want to play strangers online. So
yeah, I don't play super often, and I had some experiences like with cousins and stuff where I would be so frustrating in the game of chess that I remember one of my cousins like grabbed his king and flipped the board over and flushed his king down the toilet and just stomped off and ran away. It's like,
it's not great.
Yeah. Not that I'm good at all.
Right.
Like, I think I'm frustrating enough to where it makes it not fun for some people. So.
No, I can understand that. Yeah. Well, my equivalent would be back in the day when I played all the Street Fighter 2 in the world and was entering little local tournaments and stuff. Of course, I had home versions and people would come over, and this sounds like a humble brag, and it's really not. It was very disappointing and frustrating to me. Like, no one would want to play me because you're operating at a slightly different level and they're just screwing around. Like, they're just having fun, and you're like trying to win, and it's it just became a thing where, you'd come up with stupid things like, well, you can pick my character, or you can, like just things to try and handicap yourself. But then ultimately it was like, this isn't going to work. There's like no one I can play at Street Fighter 2 casually anymore. If I want to play Street Fighter 2,
I will tell you the game, and this isn't a humble brag because of the game. That was me with Dr. Mario.
Dr. Mario, and I am terrible at Dr. Mario. I don't know why. Like, I'm weirdly bad at it, and I'm pretty good at Tetris, and I'm pretty good at columns, and I'm pretty good at a lot of those other, like, puzzle bobble and stuff like that. But something about Dr. Mario, I can't get.
It's a unique game.
Yeah.
I remember in college, somebody had an old Nintendo system and they hooked it up, and everybody was like, "Oh, Dr. Mario, I love playing that game."
Right.
I just kind of like, and I was in college, so I was, early 20s, and I was a bit cocky and kind of a jerk, just because I was. And so I just watched it, and they just, I said, I'll just play whoever wins everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I beat them so severely that before the game was over, like it wasn't even decided yet, I put my controller down and I went and got a drink of water, and I still won while I was getting a drink of water because I had buried him so much that
there was no getting out of it. Yeah, right.
But because I did that, and that's such a gloaty jerk move.
Yeah, that's a play.
Nobody was.
Yeah, no one's gonna play after that. Yeah, no, that's totally it. That's totally it.
So,
I think there was one friend in particular. I remember he was done when we were playing Street Fighter 2, and or it was one of the Street Fighters 2, or maybe one of like the Alpha games or something, and he was getting frustrated because no matter, I was like, well, you can pick my character, and he's picking all these stupid characters I never used, and I was still beating him, and then finally I was like, look, I'll play with one hand. Like, I'll put my controller on this coffee table here, and I'll just do it one-handed. And he's like, all right. And I still beat him, and that was it. He's like, fuck, this is just aggravating me now. Like, no. So.
Okay, so Paul plays chess, you play chess, I play chess. I feel like we need some chess happening in this
we could maybe somehow, we could do a live stream with the camera pointed at the board, and I'd be down too. It's been 1,000 years. I'm probably like, and this is not me sharking. I'd probably garbage it. It's been so long since.
Oh yeah, no, me too. I think the last 20 games I've played have been against like my kid. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right. And I probably the last game I played against an adult was probably like, I bet it was like some ex-girlfriend, maybe like 15 or 20 years ago. Like it's been forever. So like, so yeah, I just going out there, like, don't expect amazing things. Like I would be totally willing to give it a shot and see how much
we should 100% treat it like a sporting event and have like Jim and we need somebody equally boisterous to like commentate.
We do. And we need a dramatic opening video, some kind of crazy like Monday Night Football with like, like just drums, like some kind of militaristic, weird, rumbly. Yeah, just I think really play it up.
Okay, did you play, there was an old computer game, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Battle Chess. Did you ever play
Battle Chess? I remember Battle Chess.
Battle Chess.
And there was a Star Wars equivalent. Do you remember the Star Wars equivalent of Battle Chess?
No.
Yes. The queen on the rebel side, the white side was, of course, Princess Leia. But like it was all the characters. It was Battle Chess, but with Star Wars branded.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I remember like it became a goal not to win at all, but just to like see how many different animations you could see in a game. That's
what it was all about. You just wanted to see the different like how does the queen kill a rook? How does well, and especially the Star Wars one, because it was like pretty sure Vader was the Black Queen. So like it was all like, well, what does it look like if Vader kills Chewie? What does it look like if Chewie kills Vader? What does it look like if R2-D2 kills Vader? Like, you're trying to do all these different combinations just to see what it looks like. But I'm sure on YouTube there's got to be some video that's just all the animations of Star Wars Battle Chess.
Oh, there has to be. I'm gonna go watch.
Yeah, that's got to be,
because it was like super basic 8-bit. And okay, so here we go.
Yeah,
we've got Ronnie and Paul are in.
Yes,
and Paul has already committed to having a walk-in song.
A walk-in song. I think that's great. I think we should all have walk-in songs. That's good. A Mario chess set. I think I remember seeing the Mario chess set.
See, my problem is I have to have a real chess set because I can't. There's something about it that breaks in my head if it's like, now they're all Lord of the Rings characters or whatever. Like, I've got to see the bishop as a bishop. I'd be translating it to like, oh, Elrond is the bishop or whatever. Like, it's got to be a real.
No, I'm for sure I would prefer a classic board. Totally. If we can organize this, I bet we could come up with one or two more people in our group. Like we could even do like a tournament tree.
I have 100% certainty, even though I have no idea. There's no facts to this at all. That Joshua Kimball plays a lot of chess.
He's got to know at least how to play.
As a 12-year-old, I bet he was really into chess.
I bet he, There, can't you hear that in your ear? Him saying like that there was a period where he was way into chess, like I
was in between reading Ayn Rand and all of the existentialists.
Right.
There was a chess period in there.
There was a chess period.
If there's not a chess period in Joshua Kimball's past, I will be very surprised.
Yes, I think he would participate, except it would require setting aside comic work for about an hour or so, like however long a game is.
I'll tell you why I think he wouldn't participate is not because of that hour, but because there's no way that he wouldn't prepare for it.
Yeah,
like he would get really. He's like one of the most impressive things about him is like he just is so good at preparing for everything. Like
he would definitely warm up. Because this is I'm. To me, it's perfect because I'm completely egoless with it. I'm willing to go in having not played in 20 years and just maybe I'll suck it up. You know, like who knows? I don't know. Like, and that's fine. I don't care. Like, it'd be fun just to play a game for the first time in forever. So,
yeah, I don't know. I would try to, just because it would be fun, I would try to get as emotionally invested as possible.
well, there you go. Like, yeah, I think I would have to. I remember how I used to play, and I don't know if that was. I mean, I remember winning more games than I lost, but I don't know if it's. I think I tended to be initially very aggressive. I had this strategy. My idea was sort of, I want to use my opponent's own pieces against them. I don't want to give them a chance to get spread out and set up. Like, so I'm going to try and crowd them right away to box them in so they're butting shoulders with their own pieces. Like, I want to try and like rush. Yeah. But as soon as, so, and that results in one of two things. Either in the first few moves, you realize you've succeeded and they're stuck now because they can't make anything happen because you've crowded them. Or they're not going to let you do it. Like, they see, like, they're very quickly, like, kind of countering that. And if that happens, then I kind of back off and I play super conservatively and slow. And they can, like, drag the game out where I'm being very careful and kind of just picking pieces off little by little, you know, and like kind of like, but settling into like the long game. So I'm either going for a short, like an immediate victory, or a long battle of attrition. I'm not very good at like a mid strategy where it's like how to win in 30 moves, you know, like I'm good at winning in a dozen or 70, you know.
The one thing I will look up before we do this, and I promise to not look anything else up, is there's that one way to kill somebody in like 3 moves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's only like one way out of it. And you have to recognize it right away.
You have to, yes, I know. I think I don't remember the name of it, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. It's always worth like the Hail Mary because it doesn't make you very vulnerable. Right. So it's worth it to see like, yeah, like if I can set this up, we can get this done right away.
Yeah.
But
that's kind of like,
that's the reason it works is what I was talking about is because they're not set up, they haven't like laid out anything. Like they're just their movement options are so limited because all their pieces are still basically in original position. So that's
right. I used to do this thing when I was playing somebody who I could tell didn't like to lose pieces.
Yeah.
And I won't do this in the tournament either because I'm giving away this terrible strategy. But it was funny to just annoy the crap out of them. And what I would do is I would create this kind of like bowl where I'd have all these pawns one diagonal from each other, so they're all protecting each other, and then I would fill in those spaces with bishops and knights. And so basically you could easily break through, but it would cost you 2 or 3 pieces. And anyone that you threw across that line was a sacrifice.
Right.
And
that's hard for some people. Some people just can't do it.
Yeah. And the thing that was infuriating to people was after I got that set up, I would just move 1 rook 2 spaces back and forth every turn.
And just hold. Yeah, that is infuriating. Yeah. It's
like a very well-stocked city that's under siege and somebody's just at the gate just like eating a sandwich every day.
Yeah, just waiting like you're gonna have to throw someone on the line, like into no man's land. Like, no, but I tend to also, I like to do that too, is basically figure out like control of this, like set it up where there's almost no place you can move where you're not making yourself vulnerable, you know, where I'm not actually attacking, but I'm just kind of like created a situation where almost anything you do is gonna suck. But it's not gonna lose the game for you, but it's gonna suck. It's gonna hurt.
Yeah, now I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. I think it's gonna happen. So let's see here. Paul just messaged Josh about. Paul says we've got 4 so far. When you guys want to do this? How about December 18th? Oh my God, he's picking dates. Let me look at my calendar. This will probably be a lot of negotiation, but
well, you know what? I mean, is this going to be? This can't be one event. This is an ongoing.
No, I think we're gonna have to do like a tournament thing where we're gonna have to figure out a bracket. We got to figure out who's committed to playing chess. So this will be a series of games.
Right.
This will be a series, and you may not play immediately because you might be waiting to see who wins between like Corey versus Paul or something. You're going to be playing whoever wins that. So we could probably do a double elimination where ultimately you're going to have like the best loser against the most winner, you know, like that's what the final bracket will be. This is very doable. We just got to figure out, we need the list. We need to know who's committed to playing some chess games.
Yep. It's great. I'm very excited.
I'm excited too. This will be cool. It'll give me an excuse to dig out my chessboard. But Paul Page, I've fallen for the damn 3-move checkmate a few times, if that tells you about my quality. Ronnie, I'm not great at it. I'm a beginner, but I do love the game. There we go. Paul says, I don't fuck around when it comes to scheduling, like he's charging ahead. Paul will make it happen.
I don't know Paul super well, but I kind of know him.
Yeah.
This is the most confident and blusterous I've seen him.
Yeah, he's excited about this. I mean, now Paul's saying one day thing, we don't want to drag it out.
Breeze through this, right?
I mean we could. This is hard. This is tough with everyone that's at lives. If you could get everyone to commit a day, we could do the whole thing in a day. Like, I don't think any of the games would take that long. But I think it's more reasonable to say we're probably going to have a series of games over different days, you know, where, like, again, with a tournament bracket, where, like, these two and these two are playing, and then those are playing.
Are we going to have multiple games going on at the same time?
We might. Well, it depends. I mean, I think I would prefer to I would never want to be in a situation where I'm playing and not able to spectate. So I would prefer not to have concurrent. Is that the right word?
Yeah,
I think concurrent games. But again, with scheduling limitations, it might be a thing where it's like, if we want to finish this in a reasonable amount of time, there may be a day where 4 people are playing, you know, and at the same time. But
yeah.
Step 1 is we need our list. Who's committing to playing 1 or more chess games in this pool? Once we have that, we're off to the races. We can figure it out. But because if we get like somehow 6 people who want to do it, like that's going to have to be over a few days. But if it turns out there's like only,
I mean, if we see, I wouldn't want to do this because I want to play, but this would be actually a really fun. This would be a really fun thing to just direct, as if you were doing the live broadcast, and you could cut back and forth.
You could
streams and be like, let's check in on so and so and so and so.
Well, so maybe we need an MC. We need some sort of an announcer or a host, because it can't be one of the players, obviously. So like someone who's interested, wants to be a part of this, but doesn't want to play.
Yeah, it'd have to be somebody that's technologically savvy enough to be able to pull it off too.
Savvy and knows something about chess.
No,
you don't have to be an expert. None of us are experts, but you need to know something.
I want our commentators to have no chess knowledge at all.
Just go over. It's like, well, looks like Gary's gotten all the pointy pieces. Like, yeah, just nonsense. Just that would be jump him.
Okay, so everybody contact Paul. If you want to do this,
okay,
get a hold of Paul.
Paul, I will message you when I break this broadcast. So we'll figure it out. Start a group chat. Once we get all the messages, Paul, start a group chat, and we'll be able to talk to each other working it out. I might wear my luchador wrestling mask.
Yeah, I want people to show up shirtless and greased up with like olive oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There should be some trash talk in the beginning before we start playing. There should be. You've never even seen the kind of castling I have planned. You don't even know.
Yeah. Oh man. I'm just gonna start making up Russian names that sound like a gambit.
What is that?
Showing off the Parchovsky's Gambit, huh?
There we go. Yeah, it's just, yeah. Oh, a Dimitrinov. Oh, just made up. No, well, and what is that? I've never known how to pronounce it. It's a weird move that I can't say in my life I've ever actually done because it rarely comes up. But there's a capture move by a pawn. I think the French is en passant, where it's like in passing. There's like a way, and it's a weird, you should Google it. It's a strange capture move that I can't say I've ever done. That it involves somehow, if it's a very certain kind of situation where I think if it's the initial move and it's 2 jumps or 2 spaces ahead, because the initial move, and there was a piece that you're passing in the process, somehow you can capture that piece just by going by it. It's something like that. I'm completely rusty. And like I said, it's such a bizarro situation. It almost never presents. But Google en passant, EN space PASSANT.
Yeah, that I am not familiar with. So
no, it's weird. It's weird, and I always try to like keep it in my back pocket of like maybe that, but it's never stuck because it's so random. But
that's funny.
Okay, Ronnie. Thinking about it. I'm in a different state. I don't have a chessboard with me. Can probably
I think there's probably ways that we could figure out. I think there's probably ways that we could figure out a digital version of the board as well.
I think it would be great if there was some way that we were playing in the same program that we could screen share as like a third. So you're seeing like the digital board, like almost like when we do top 5 and we have slides. If it could be like you and me off in the margin and then like a digital board that we're both participating. There's got to be a way to do that.
Well, my daughter used to be learning chess, and so I feel like, I feel like there's a way to do this online. That's
a good one. I recognize your Smirnov. Yeah, so yeah, I gotta prepare a lot of Russian names.
Yeah. Okay, chess tournaments. Complete an online chess tournament or join an online arena where anyone can win. Join chess for complete daily. No, I don't want to play random strangers. I want to set up my own chess tournament. We'll figure this out.
Ronnie is saying perhaps he could be commentator, but Paul is insisting like, no, you're playing. So we'll see. We'll see. But I'm excited about this, and I think it'll be fun. It'll be a nice diversion, if nothing else. If only because, again, I'm so out of practice I can't take it too seriously, which is exactly where I want to be. If we were going to do like Street Fighter tournament, I would feel like I would be the Josh thing where it's like, okay, I got to brush up. I got to get good because I got to, represent. I don't have that attachment to chess, and I can just have fun with it. And if I win, that's great. And if I lose, that's fine too. So,
yeah. And I wasn't saying that Josh does that as a detriment. I was saying that.
No.
But it's, because when I was doing the indie review show with him, I always felt a little bit bad because he would show up so knowledgeable and so prepared.
Yeah.
And I would show up and just be like that, guy that was just like, oh, I was just going to talk about this book. So then I started doing Post-it notes and other things.
No, I have the same, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way, the same affliction where like, I remember the couple indie review shows that I participated in. It was like days of planning beforehand, thinking about it, making notes, I really like, it was a whole thing, but
whereas
not everything makes me react that way. I don't feel like I have to do that level for all things in life, but there are some things that for some reason the switch flips and it's like, oh, I got to take this seriously.
Yeah. For me, I would go downstairs and read it, like an hour before we went live or something. It was not anyway. This is just another example of how Josh is better than I am in a number of ways.
Ronnie is, and I wouldn't be shocked. Ronnie is saying, wait, doesn't Facebook have an online chess game?
Yeah, maybe.
Likely.
I would really hope to not Feed the beast, though.
Yeah, I would also prefer to find something outside of that, just
because I don't know.
But maybe that's what we'll resort to. I don't know. Once we get our player list, then we can switch to like, how are we doing this? I would love being able to actually use a physical board and just pointing the camera at it or something. But I do see the big advantages of doing it digitally, where now I don't have to, like, if you and I are playing each other and you make a move, I don't have to now make your move on my board,
right?
You know, and like worry, did I forget to do something? Or like, it would be nice to be just playing it online and having it all tracked. But
yeah, there's got to. I'll look into it, and if not, I've got a buddy that I could probably get to program one.
There's got to be something. I bet there's dozens of possible things.
It's got to be like one of the easiest things to program because it's just rule-based.
Especially if you don't have a computer player. Like, all you have to do is, like, this is what the pieces can and can't do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And,
you're not doing the AI. It's just
right.
Yeah.
And what constitutes a capture, you know, and there you go, you're done.
Yeah. I feel like humanity doesn't deserve to exist if there isn't already something like 50 versions of this.
Let's see. I'm going to just play. I'm going to just do what the first Google was. Play chess online with a friend. There we go. The 6 best websites to play chess online with friends for free. That sounds like that's right up our alley. Free sounds right. Chess.com, ironically enough.
Yeah, no, that's where I just was. I have to look into it a little bit more, but
there's a site called Red Hot Pawn. So that sounds I'm going to keep this tab open. There's a list to look at. That, I mean, there's got to be a way to do it. But
yeah,
we'll probably end up just picking the one that we think looks coolest.
Yeah, I mean, if there is an open source, this is what I would like to see. If there's an open source version of this where we could customize our own pieces.
That would be fun.
That would be
cool. My God, it could be dinosaurs versus Marsbots versus whichever you would. I could do little quick cartoons of little aliens and dinosaurs for my pieces.
Yeah, little animations or posters or something.
Now it's getting ridiculous and ambitious.
Yeah, now it'll never happen. But for
it's spiraling.
For season 2 of this.
Season 2, yeah. Okay, so Ronnie's definitely in. Just keep me informed. We will keep you informed. Ronnie, when will you be back home? I forgot. Yeah, I know you had told me in the past, but in case that's something that matters. I don't think it will, but. This thing working? We're gonna do it, Paul. We're gonna do it.
It's happening.
It's happening.
I am very excited for Paul to completely dominate everybody in this.
I'm excited for him to just really do like the full theater of it, the pro wrestling theater of it.
Mm-hmm. All right. I drew all these leaves and now I'm trying to clean them up and now I'm regretting drawing all these leaves.
Well, we're past the 2-hour mark because of talk of social media and chess and not very much Star Wars. And then originally my brief creative crisis. So there was a varied and full stream today. So I
only caught the tail end of that. Give me the Cliff Notes version.
So the Cliff's Notes version would be the drawing has been very difficult and it's been a push and I've been regularly behind a few days on my preferred timeline.
Uh-huh.
And for some reason, it was like this perfect storm right when I was wrapping up. Actually, I had wrapped up the previous page and I threw myself right into working on the page I'm working on now. And it was this perfect storm of 3 distinct things. I felt, first of all, so I'll start with the most positive thing, and you'll appreciate this. There's these moments where basically you've leveled up in your ability. And as a result, everything you're working on doesn't look quite right because you've like, you know, like you realize you've kind of like next leveled, you know, and your skill is like fixed or something. You've unlocked something in your brain. And everything you did previous, you're just seeing how it's not as good as it could be. Like that happens time to time. If you're working all the time, you'll notice like a jump in evolution. So that hit, which is, as I was explaining on the stream, not a fun experience when you're midstream. Like it's nice if maybe you finish a work and then like you have that realization. It's difficult in the middle of it. And I'm not in the middle, I'm past the middle, but so to speak, like to feel like, ugh, if I had started this today, this whole thing today, it would look different than it's been looking.
Sure.
So there's that. There was I'll work from like most, I think, graspable and understandable to least. So there is that. The next one was, I was really feeling, and I think it's because it's been tough, challenging drawing. I was really feeling the limitations, bumping up against the limitations of time and my own ability. I had very clear pictures in my head of how this could look if I had unlimited time and I was better. You know, like I could picture it in my head, and that was really bumming me out. It was bumming me out, realizing, and again, like the limitations of just wanting to turn out a page a week. You're making hard choices every single time. What can I accomplish in this limited amount of time? It's not going to be the best drawing you've ever done in your life. Yeah. And normally I just sort of take that as a given. But for some reason on that day, it really bummed me out that I'm putting out work that's 25% of my ability. You know, like it's like if I had unlimited time, just that. Like, and if I didn't have a day job, if I could just do this perfectly the way I was capable, if I maximized my potential in this, it would look better. And I'm not doing that. And that bums me out, frustrates and depresses me. So that was the second thing. And then the last thing, and this is the most weird and kind of abstract and strange and something I've never experienced before. I suddenly had this feeling of like the pressure and the responsibility and the obligation of this being worthy. And worthy with like a capital W on every level. First of all, worthy of people's time, the time they're going to take to read it, the time they're going to take to think about it. Is it worthy of being reread? Is it worthy of being put in context of the previous 2 books and the future 3? And then also in like a giant level, I am making this art, lowercase a art, to put in the pantheon of uppercase A art. You know, like this is now my artistic contribution to the whole of creativity. And is it worthy of that? And like for all those things, for some reason, got stirred up in the same 24 hours. And
so you were like spiraling.
I was in full existential artist crisis.
Yeah.
And my reaction was like, I need to step away. Like this is ridiculous. Like right. I don't know what's going on here, but at the end where the rubber meets the road, this is not the right headspace for drawing. This is not good for my productivity. This is not good for my work. This is not good for my brain. Like I just need to take a step, just a day or 2 off. I need to step away. And so I pivoted to another project, and now I'm feeling fine. But I needed to kind of I needed to recognize like I am too in this, too deep in this, and too wrapped up, and I need to step back. But that's a lot. I don't know. I couldn't tell you how I got there. It was just like, like, you know, you're walking the trail and then suddenly you realize like, oh my God, it's midnight and it's a new moon and I'm in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's what the experience was. And my reaction was like, I'm just going to make camp and the sun will rise and I'll figure it out, you know? And like, that was sort of my metaphorical reaction, but.
Well, you're just describing a basic spiral, you know, of like, you start with something that hits, but is logical. And then you spin into stuff that is just all over the place and weird. And, you know, like Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, so I can't. I've never really had that kind of creative. And crisis is too big a word, but it's the best one. Like I've never had that kind of creative crisis before, where I've just felt like nothing. I don't like anything I'm making. I'm frustrated with the process, and I'm feeling the weight of this whole endeavor, which I decided on the heaviness of. You know, like it was just this weird, like it's like, and I just needed it's like I needed to sleep it off. You know, it was just
I did that to myself with my YouTube channel.
Oh yeah,
I was posting fairly consistently, and being somewhat of a cynic, I got kind of sick of giving everybody. I have that full gamut of crisis every time I sit down and draw. Yeah, that is interesting in a microcosm. But I was really sick of this thing that I was seeing where there's a couple influencers within a thought space that would say something, and then everybody else would regurgitate and repeat that, or be inspired by it, or play off of it, or whatever. And so there's this like same churn of advice that would come through, and you're either reacting to it or whatever. And I just felt like I did this whole video about how I hate advice on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then it paralyzed me from making videos, because every video topic that I thought of was advice-based.
Could fall in that category. Right.
And I got into my own head of how this, like, you know, am I like the biggest hypocrite on the planet as I rail against the things that I'm about to do? And so every time I tried to come up with something that I wanted, or every time, because I don't like try to come up with a video topic, because I'm not good at YouTube. You know, I just use it as a way to get ideas out. And it's like journaling. I like live journal. That's what I'm doing on YouTube. Is it's just like a public thought space. But you could probably look. I think it might have been a year or more where I just didn't make a video. Yeah. Like other than live streaming, where it's like this, where I'm hanging out with people and talking. Like I had a pretty consistent. I did a few hundred videos in a row, and then all of a sudden it was like this screeching halt. And that was because I just got inside my head, and then I was just like, because that was the beginning of the spiral. It went much deeper than that, where I was just like, you know, who am I to even make videos? Like, why would you listen to me? Like, it was like my imposter syndrome got a hold of that and just started, you know, pouring gasoline on the fire and adding all kind of fuel. And all of a sudden I was like, you know, thinking of you know, evaluations I got at work 6 years ago as like reasons why, you know, my opinion is worthless, you know. And it's like, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. So
no, I totally get it. Well, and part of when I was in this weird little state, whatever was happening, a lot of, especially like that last thing, this idea of like worrying, is this like worthwhile? Is this worthy of people's time and attention and interest?
Yeah.
There was, on some level, I think that's on some level, I think that's maybe being a responsible creator. Like you're respecting people's time and affection and interest. Okay. But I also was frustrated even with that because, and I've talked about this lots for years now, I have always been very protective of my process, where it is about my individual journey making the thing. And I do my best to isolate myself from whatever the impersonal demands of the audience may or may not be. Like I think it's very personally from my thing, I'm not judging anybody else. I find it's critical to me to not give a fuck what anybody wants from this. You know, like that I need to do what I want from this, that I need to make this a positive experience for me, that I need to make this. So even the fact that my mind was drifting toward like, how people will consume this, I was sort of disappointed in myself and felt like I had lost my way. Just having that thought, I was annoyed with myself. Like
Right.
that it just shows like you've gone awry somewhere. Like you need to recenter. You need to find, again, you're in the woods now. It's a new moon. It's dark. You're just seeing, like, you're bumping into trees. You don't know where you are. You need to refine the path. You've wandered off the path. The path, you were fine on the path. It's now you kind of like let yourself drift. And so there was something in that too, that I was just like, no. This is not the right way to be thinking about this. But
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. The challenge with imposter syndrome, or anything that kind of stems from that or feeds off of it or whatever, is that it starts with a productive and helpful way of thinking about your work.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Some people claim it's been disproved or whatever, but I see so many examples of it all the time that it's hard for me to imagine that there's not some truth in it. But the idea of the person who never sees a fault in the stuff that they're creating, and their stuff looks like crap, and they never improve and whatever. So I mean, like, having a healthy introspection of kind of a growth mindset of what could improve and what could get better, and you want to make things that are valuable, to people and things like that.
Right.
But then you take that and it mutates into this thing that becomes debilitating and not helpful.
It's like, I feel like you're playing with uranium or something. I 100% believe the only way to do something the best you're capable of and to continue to get better and better and better is to be able to be, I don't like the word critical because it's got a weird connotation to it, a lot of weird connotations to it, but it's that ability to constantly self-evaluate, and more importantly, to always be able to imagine a better version. Like, how could this be a +1? How could I +1 this? Like, I think that's a very important part of an artist that's oriented towards growth. On the other hand, this is where it's playing with uranium. Like, that's again like working on a knife's edge. Like, because if you get to the point where nothing is good enough, everything could be better. Mm-hmm. Like, you can always imagine how this is not as good as it could be. Like, that's the recipe for, being completely miserable and spiraling all the time. So like you need a little bit of that, but there is too much of a good thing, I think. And I think that was also maybe part of what was going on, is I was working so intensely on like, how can I get this just right? Like I had been living too long and too intensely in that space of trying to push the outer boundary of my ability and getting frustrated. But like we should be always, I think, bumping up against the wall of our ability or limitations or time constraints or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But not so hard that you're like headbutting it and, like hurting yourself. Like, you need to be aware of it. You need to know this is the periphery, and I can maybe push here a little bit, but you shouldn't be like running into it head first, and I think that's kind of what I was doing just for a little too long, where it just ended up, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's the thing, is like, the basis of cancer is like that. Cancer is horrible. Well, the basis of cancer is like that.
Yeah.
It's a horrible, awful thing, right? It kills, but like mutation and adaptation are good, right?
Yes.
And cellular growth is good. And cellular
working out
is good.
The best workout is one that it's outside your comfort. Maybe it leaves you a little sore, but you can go too far. Like, you can't go too far and injure yourself. And I think that's kind of the same thing. You got to find that spot where you're stretching. Like, it's, this is outside, just 1 teaspoon outside your comfort zone. Not too far, because too far is like, now you're going to just kill yourself. But like, like you need to be in that range where also you're not just playing it safe and comfortable all the time, and therefore nothing's changing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. I'm kind of like Paul though. When I first, because I've been doing this for about 10 years, so not a super long time. Unless you're 15 or 20 or something, then it seems like a long time.
Then it seems like forever. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've been doing this for about 10 years. And I remember the first couple of years just really struggling with imposter syndrome a lot until I kind of realized that's never going away. That part of my thinking is not going to go away, and I don't want it to. I want that, but I need it to be useful. It's kind of like fire,
Yeah.
I don't want fire in my house, but like fire in a controlled situation where it's in the stove and inside the furnace and heating up the water and in the fireplace, like where it's useful and has a point. It's helpful. But I kind of look at it like a beautiful mind. I talk my students through this, where his psychosis never goes away, but he just chooses to kind of tag it and bag it. Like he recognizes things.
Yes.
Like he meets somebody that he's never met before, and the first thing that he does is ask someone that he knows isn't an illusion.
Right.
Do you see this person?
Do you see this? Yeah. Right. Right.
And then as soon as because he's doing scientific classification. And so in my mind, I do that with imposter syndrome. If I have an imposter syndrome thought, it's futile to try to make it go away.
Right.
But it's useful to me to identify it and put it aside and be like, oh, I know what that is. And that goes over here,
Yeah.
I categorized it. I take away its power because it's categorized, but I can still look at it and say, oh, that's actually useful. I could do a little bit better. Maybe my ink work is getting a little bit too thick. Maybe I should thin that out a little bit.
Right. No, and that's actually, especially as, I dabble in meditation. It's a mindfulness exercise, is to kind of just start labeling the thoughts that are popping in your head or the feelings, or whatever the sensations, like just take a small step back and kind of identify them, not even judge them, not even try to stop them, just sort of, categorize. This is this kind of thing. This is this kind of thing. It's a similar, I think sometimes, if you're in the middle of a drawing and you're looking, it's like, that doesn't look right. Sometimes that's a very good, important part of the process. It's like, that's not looking right. But sometimes it can get overactive. It can get overexcited. It can get over whatever, and nothing looks right. And everything could be better. And, you're just you've gone too far. But.
Have I talked to you about the new class I'm teaching, intentional creativity?
I don't know if you have. I don't know.
We should talk at some point. Yeah, it's based in mindfulness practices, but with the intention to trigger productive creativity.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
Basically, I'm taking this generation that has their eyes have never seen a space that didn't have a screen in it. And I'm going to say, let's go sit in the woods for an hour and the only textbook that I'm making them get is a Faraday bag. And at the beginning of class, everybody puts electronics in a Faraday bag.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
great.
We're going to go for a walk and talk and breathe and think and look at leaves. I'm going to do just basic stuff. Like, let's do some observational drawing. Just, because some of these students, being comm students and not art students, have never sat for 45 minutes and tried to draw a leaf or a bug or something.
So how many and how bad is the withdrawal situation? Like, are there?
Sorry, I'm teaching it next semester.
Oh, okay. So okay.
I haven't done it yet. But I've read a lot about it, and part of my master's was on the value of boredom on creativity.
Right.
Talking about, and I've talked about that at length, and I need to revisit that. But so it'll be interesting to see. And I do have one class where I have them do an experiment for a week and just remove some kind of distraction from their daily routine, like eat breakfast without your phone, or commute to school in silence, or something, right?
Yeah.
And add in some sort of non-essential, pointless creative practice where you're making something and the results of it don't matter. You don't need to show anybody else, and that type of thing. And the results of that are fascinating. And people do describe that for the first couple of days, they're reaching for their phone, and when they know they don't have their phone, they're the physical acts of doing things, kind of like when somebody gives up smoking, they don't know what to do with their hands.
Yeah.
It's a very similar thing. There's one thing that I've considered is there's a product called No Phone that is literally just a rectangle of plastic it looks and it feels and has a similar weight to a smartphone.
Wow.
But it's just a solid piece of plastic. And so you put
it in so you have something to fiddle with?
Well, basically because you feel stupid when you take it out and look at this brick of plastic that you knew was a brick of plastic.
Oh, it's kind of it's a little
yeah.
A teaching retraining instrument. That's sort of interesting.
Because it's kind of like, and everybody's experienced this, when the battery in your phone dies.
Yeah.
And then you still check your phone 15 times in the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like you're still like, oh yeah, it's still dead, which I knew and I know wasn't changing, but I am still going to look at it. And then 3 minutes later, you're going to check it again. Anyway. And that's why everybody should be on Mastodon. Because
unfortunately, this sounds like the argument of like, maybe you don't have to do any of it. Like maybe step away from all of it. Would that be so bad? Would that be the end of the world?
I tell I'm not going to require this because I don't think ethically I have the right to require this level of engagement of my students, but I will encourage them as an experiment, turn off all of the notifications on your phone. Just turn them all off. If you have like a emergency specific or occupational specific need for notification, sure, leave text messaging on or something like that. But like, turn everything else off, and then
you really don't need an Instagram notification on. Like, there's really no reason I can't think of a real reason that you need that.
The one reason for my students is if you are a social media manager managing someone.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. But I would say the average user.
Yeah.
Like you're posting pictures of your lunch or even posting pictures of your work. Even me. Like I don't have alerts or notifications on for my Instagram. I'm sometimes posting comic stuff. I don't need to know. I don't need to know. Like when I get to it, when I check it, I'll see who's liked it. Like I don't need to know minute to minute, like what's going on with a post. So.
And I've gotten to that point. But I was, and sometimes still find myself at the point where it's like every, I post something and then I waste 30 minutes like on the toilet.
Yeah, looking, refreshing and seeing what. Yeah.
Whereas
no, actually, I've gotten to the point where I think the only item on I'm just checking to make sure I'm not lying here. The only app on my phone where I have notifications on is my Outlook, which are just to see like, do I have an email? But everything else, and it's actually, I get aggravated when I download a new app or something gets reset and now it's showing notifications or showing the little badges, where like, and it's actually, I have to admit, it kind of raises my stress level. Yep. To see notifications on things. I don't need to have, I know myself well enough that will be like an itch that needs to be scratched if I see that red number.
Right.
And I don't need it. I don't like it's just that like, it's almost like an OCD thing. Like I just don't want the number. So I'm going to go in to view it. So I don't have the number, Yeah, it's like, the easy thing is to have it not show the numbers at all.
Well, my problem, because I like your thinking, but my problem with that personally is that then I don't know. And so then I end up checking a bunch of stuff where there are notifications because there could be.
And then you check. Yeah. See, I guess, well, not that you'd have to, me personally, it just means like, I think the number or the alert is more distressing to me than the wondering what might be going on. Like, I'm pretty good at kind of relieving myself of the mystery. You know, I don't know, maybe there's something in there, maybe there's not, I don't know. Like, I can make peace with that and maybe check into something once a day or once every couple days, whatever. Like, whenever I think it's like, oh, now I'm going to sit and screw around on my phone. But if there's an alert there, I cannot ignore it. Like, I know that's how I work. So it's like, okay, well, that's going to make me chase this thing where every time I look at it and see an alert, like, now I have to go and see what it is. I can't have that. Like, I can't have.
I'll tell you what drives me nuts is I'm the same way.
Yeah.
But I also, because I've learned about, boundaries after, my 20s where I pulled all-nighters all the time and let my employers walk all over me and my schedule. I now, I'm done at 5 if I can be. If I need to stay till 6, I'll do that, obviously. But I mean, I'm done. And so I'm not available to my students after 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have all of those emails and Slack and everything else on my phone. And so they can still like send me a message. And I'm almost to the point where that bothers me because I have to it doesn't bug me if it's like, 7:30 on a Tuesday because whatever, I'm going to put my phone down soon and I'll just deal with it tomorrow when I go to work. But if it's like a Friday evening, I know that I have to look at that for several days. Because I don't want to encourage the behavior of responding to them because that just opens up a whole bag of worms. But I actually had
kind of creating an expectation too.
Right.
And then you're conscious of the expectation. You've set a precedent where, sometimes I check my emails on Saturday. Right. Therefore, if you send a message and expect a response sometime before Monday morning, exactly. I kind of know, I sort of created that precedent. So that's why, that would drive me crazy. And that's why I think I would have to relieve myself of that and just let everybody know from the outset, even if it made me sound like an old man, I will not be looking at my email from these blocks, and I'm like, if there is truly an emergency, if there is some extraordinary set of circumstances where you need me before I am back in office hours, here is the way to reach me. But otherwise, no, I won't be checking my email and you shouldn't even be messaging me. If it's Saturday, why are you messaging?
And in that situation where some extraordinary thing, none of my students will ever be in that position. It's kind of
you could maybe safely say.
Yeah, it's
but
kind of
I can imagine a bizarro situation, but not where they would need an immediate reply. So I guess no. I could imagine a situation I had a death in the family. I got to fly across the country. I'm going to be dropped. They're not going to have cell service. I'm going to be going dark for a week. Sure. I'm letting you know today, but they don't need to hear back from you today.
Yeah,
they just need to tell you today.
Right.
Right.
And I can see where my colleagues or my employer or my boss or my chair or my dean or something, but they've got my cell phone number.
Yeah.
And they're in the same boat. They don't want to be working after hours either. So if they do, that's whatever. But I never give my students my cell phone number. And so if you're trying to so I had a student, I won't give a time frame because I don't want to give any hints, but I had a student at one point in time say they sent an email to a colleague of mine and she was telling me she's a newer teacher, how do I handle this? And she got an email at 9 p.m. She saw the email and then rightfully didn't respond and went about her evening, and then got another email at 10 p.m. I emailed you earlier today and it's unacceptable that you have not responded, blah, 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 blah.
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Wow.
This student was because what you and I fail to understand is that they have been raised in an environment where that is unusual.
Yes.
Instant gratification is not a term they even understand because it's just the norm. It's
that's gratification. Right.
Just trying to tell fish about water. They're like, you mean everything around me,
Right.
And so for me to get up there and tell them you won't understand this until you're on your like 5th all-nighter in a 2-week period.
Yeah.
Where like it is appropriate and necessary for you to set professional boundaries, which is what I'm doing with you. This is my job.
Right.
Your lack of preparation doesn't change the fact that I clocked out and I'm done for the day.
Right. Right.
You know, and they're like, but my grade and my scholarship and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, yes, these are all consequences that happen in life, and welcome to those. And I'm sorry that this will affect and cost you thousands of dollars because of the decision that you've made to lose your scholarship by procrastinating and not getting this answer in a reasonable amount of time during my business hours when I'm working. But when you call the doctor and they say, we're closed, if this is an emergency, dial 911, that's the situation you're in.
Right.
You know, you call somebody else because I'm not emergency services. I'm your teacher.
Right. There was, we took it down when we moved offices, but at the old building in our section, we had a sign up. The attorneys did not care for it, but it basically in a big flowery script, it said, "Your lack of planning on your part does not constitute a crisis on ours." You know, like it's just, we're not, you're going to be disappointed if you run in here, it's like, oh my God, I should have. And it's like, look, we're not going to rearrange heaven and earth to accommodate your incompetence. It's sorry, but.
Yeah, some people that is mind-boggling to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's also sort of the human condition. You want everyone to mirror wherever you're at. I just was listening to this might be the final thought because I see we're closing in on 3 hours, but I was just listening to the Pete Holmes podcast, and he was talking to, I want to get the guy's name right. It was Rhett from Good Mythical Morning. I can't remember his last name. Anyway, but he was talking to him, and they were talking about, Rhett was talking about how he and his wife and his son were going to see one of the final Elton John performances. I guess Elton John is doing his like farewell tour. Maybe it's all done now. But anyway, they were running way late, and they knew that he was going to start right on time at 8, and it was already, they're still in the car, and it's like 8:15. They haven't even parked yet. Traffic is terrible. And Rhett is like spiraling. He's getting so aggravated, so frustrated. And his wife, and he said, and this is always how she is in these situations, whether we're going to miss a plane, we're late to the airport, whatever the situation is, totally cool as a cucumber. Very much like a Zen kind of like, there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing getting upset is going to do to change it. Like very like easy about it,
right.
Which is making him even more angry. And Pete Holmes' joke, he was like, it's almost disloyal. And they were like laughing about it. It's like, you are my wife. I am upset. You need to be upset, but I think it says something about how we are. I think we've all been there where it's like, I need you to feel exactly how I feel, right. Like I feel this way right now, and you not feeling the way I feel is upsetting and disloyal. It feels like a betrayal. Like I need you to identify with me right now. And we've all been there. But
Yeah. I'll let it end there. I was gonna jump in and
oh my gosh. I know. Well, we could go, you and I especially could go almost indefinitely. But I do need to get back to drawing. And we're closing in on 3 hours. Is there anything you'd like to promote or push people toward or mention?
If you want to hear my reasoning behind this illustration or other illustrations that I've done, get on my email newsletter at coreykerr.com/email, because I'll be sending out a thing. This time,
when is the next one going out?
So that is one of those things where you and I are at different places right now, and I intentionally do not commit to.
Good for you.
At a specific timeline.
Good. So good.
It'll be soon because I've got some video footage and this image that I want to get out, but it'll probably be a shorter one. Basically, I'm just talking about how interesting it is to me that something as simple as like a bee could cause a total societal collapse and the end of life on the planet as we know it.
Yes.
So that'll be, and this one I feel like is a little bit more bleak than some of the other ones where it's like, you could do something about it.
Sure. This is the thing where,
if there's colony collapse worldwide, the entire food chain.
We're done.
It's done. It's over.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. But we'd probably figure out a way to have little robots with little Q-tips or something going from flower to flower to try to keep pollinating plants. But then we would all be, eating whatever lobbyist was best at lobbying.
We are way behind the curve on how to do that on a large scale, basically to hand or artificially pollinate things, crops.
This is where I get really frustrated with like self-driving cars and AI art. And it's like, do you not understand how fragile life on this planet is? We should actually be trying to solve like what happens when we run out of electricity at a global scale? Like what happens when we, when the bees die? What happens when there are some like really intricate societal collapse things. Anyway,
how is desalination going, guys? There are things that could actually change the game and at least push off crisis points in human, but instead we're thinking about Mars. I don't know. It's,
right. Yeah. So anyway, if you are also interested in that type of thing, then check out my series of illustrations called Esoteric Crumble Flux. That's the the rarely thought about societal collapses and ways to avoid them on my email. So you asked me to promote. That's I'm really bad.
There we go. Yeah, sign up for the newsletter, and I look forward to the next one whenever it arrives. No pressure.
Whenever it arrives.
Yeah, whenever. I know I do, and genuinely good for you for not holding yourself to some kind of weird schedule that now you're a slave to. It comes out when it comes out. I like the sound of that. But.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, let's see. Let me look at this calendar real quick to see what. Yes. So it looks like next week we'll I don't know if it'll be Saturday or Sunday, the next live stream. I would like to steer back to Saturdays, but we'll see how it goes. But there will be a live stream next week sometime. Hopefully at that point I will be working on page 43. There's no way I won't be working on page 43. Hopefully 43 is going well. And I'll be one page closer to being out of the swamp of this section of the book. So I'm anticipating my morale and energy and enthusiasm to start a slow, especially the end is in sight. The hard work is getting behind me. I think it's going to I'll be starting to feel, I think that thing last week was probably like my darkest hour. It wasn't even that dark. It wasn't that bad. It was just like a minor little I'm exhausted and over it, but I'm recovering. I'm recovered and continuing to recover. So it'll be good. Anyway, look forward to a chess tournament. We're going to figure out the details.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
It's going to be great. I'm excited. That'll be a fun diversion. All right, guys, logging off. Have a productive week and talk to you next weekend.
See ya.